Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. And this is basically budget meeting number 2 of the 2019 budget cycle. And the second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Councillor Hunter and seconded by Councillor Cameron. Those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. And then item number 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here today? No disclosures noted. And so now we're at item number 4, discussion of the 2019 budget. And the first item is the review of the reserves and the reserve funds. And I asked to have this put up front, and I just wanted to talk to it briefly because I want everyone to understand where we are here. Now, there's been several iterations of this reserve and reserve fund thing. I just have to make sure that I have the right one up front here. And is that the one, Melanie, dated at the top? No, it's not the one dated 1st of, or the 3rd of January. It's the 18th. So it's the one dated the 18th, and Treasurer points out that these are pre-audit balances, so before the audit. And if you just look down these first column, that's the column on the left-hand side, we have a subtotal on earmarked reserves of $1,577,294. Just point out that those funds exist within our operating account. And those funds are basically, those reserves are basically set up to act as buffers to our budgeting in those various departments that you see listed there. And they ebb and flow according to how accurate our budgeting is. Then we have the account which is 013540, which is our working funds of $750,000, which is basically in everybody's financial statements to cover the fluctuation between the time that we receive tax revenues and the amount of money that we're spending out. Because our total reserve in that category is $2.3 million, $2.327 million, our township has never actually had to realize on the borrowing bylaw that the treasurer will bring forward here shortly. We're in a very good position from a cash flow point of view. So then I want to go down below that to the reserve funds, and the reserve funds are actually money that is segregated from the operating account. It's separated off into a number of investment instruments within an investment portfolio that generates interest. And as you can see from the second column, the estimated interest that it will generate in 2019 is about $97,000. So the reserve funds as of December the 31st, 18 are about $4,147,000, subject to some slight adjustments at audit. Plus, we estimate $97,000 in interest that will be earned, plus, and I'm just going to refer you to the middle column there, which says 2019 budgeted transfers in, assuming that we approve. And you can see that the treasurer is suggesting or proposing that we budget about $359,000 into those reserve funds. So I'll just leave it at that. If there's any questions, we'll deal with questions with those, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. So any questions there so far?
Where do you see the $97,000, Mayor? Interest.
On the line that's called total reserve funds?
Yeah.
Right at the bottom?
Yes, thank you.
Third column.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions with regard to this?
So other than the pre-audit balances that may fluctuate this a bit, everything else is in there?
Correct.
And I'm only looking at the first three columns. On the left-hand side, the left three columns. Okay, any other questions? If not, I'm about to move on. All right, so moving on. What I asked to have presented here today was the following. I said, I want to know where the $638,000 additional revenue that comes to us from phase-in and growth is going to go. And I think we have a report in front of us, and I think it's marked. I'm having trouble here with my paperwork. We have a sheet that's called, at the top, it's called taxation revenue, phase-in taxation, and then growth-related to taxation. Does everyone have that sheet in front of them? No page number on it.
Yes. Third page before B.
Yes.
Taxation revenue, phase-in taxation, and growth relation, is that the one?
Growth-related taxation,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right. Okay, so now, as you can see, the treasurer tells us additional taxation revenue using the 2018 tax rate will be $638,000. Of that amount, $131,764 is related to phase-in. Now, does everybody understand the concept of phase-in? I want to get that, make sure everybody understands that concept. Basically, I'll just reiterate. Every 4 years, the province goes to what is called a new base assessment year. So the latest base assessment year was January 1, 2016. And on January 1, 2016, the MPAC, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation computers generated the values of all 6 million properties in Ontario as of January the 1st, 2016. Some properties increased in value over the previous base year, which was January the 1st, 2012. Some properties decreased in value from January the 1st, 2012. The January 1st, 2016 base year takes those new assessed values and applies them to the 2017, the 2018, the 2019, and the 2020 taxes. If your property declined in value between January 1, 2012 and January 1, 2016, you got an immediate relief in your 2017 taxes, which will continue for the next 4 years. If your property increased in value between the 2012 base and the 2016 base, that increase was phased in 4 equal increments over the 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 tax years. 2019 is the 3rd year of the phase-in, and that will bring us $131,764. Now that's money that will come directly out of the pockets of the people that own the land, the property owners. And that's additional money over and what they paid for their taxes last year. Now the next number, the 506,000, that's growth-related taxation, or taxation that relates to our growth. And basically, we have $87 million of additional assessment I'm just using one figure, $87 million of additional assessment that came from Giant Tiger. Most of that 87 came from Giant Tiger, and that will generate an additional 506,000. That's not out of the tax, that's not out of the pockets of the residential taxpayer. Now, the treasurer tells us where that's gonna go, and I'm gonna let the treasurer speak to where she's gonna put it. So, you're up.
I want to just, through the chair, just one slight correction. There is residential growth in that $500,000.
Yeah, so, yeah, that'll be the 24, 25 additional houses.
Correct.
Right.
So in terms of taking that additional revenue, in 2018's budget, we had estimated additional supplementary for Giant Tiger. And so in 2019, I'm not anticipating the same amount of supplementary. So there's actually a reduction because we've received a portion of the growth that's identified in the 500,000. We've actually received a portion of that growth in 2018 because Giant Tiger was actually added in 2018 to the books.
Yes, but that was 2018 money.
Yeah, it was 2018 money and it was recognized in 2018, but a portion of the growth of the 506, a portion of Giant Tiger's money, because it was in mid-year, was already received in 2018. So I'm not receiving, I'm reducing the growth amount by that amount of money because I don't anticipate additional growth.
And that's where we have a disagreement there. We have a disagreement there because they'll pay, in 2018, they paid, let's say, 6 months of taxation against their big assessment. In 2019, they'll pay 12 months.
Correct.
So when you show the 638, I'm assuming that that's a full year's impact of that increased assessment.
And then 130 is the portion of taxes that have already been recognized in 2018. That portion of the full year.
So it included 18 months.
I'm only talking growth.
Yeah, but it's 18 months of growth for that particular customer.
Right. Portion of it was received in 18, so I can't show full growth in 2019. The only other thing I'm saying here too is the grant in lieu is up by 47,000, but because we don't know what the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund is, I'm not identifying that as a value that I'm using for either operational or capital at this point in time. I'm not saying that $47,000 is the value I think that it's going to be reduced by. I'm just not using it in this calculation, just as a buffer. So my increase in operating expenses is 127. That's what the senior management team has reviewed their operating expenses as per directed by the council to become between 2 and 2.5. It's at 2.19 for 127,453. So most of that is going to come from the phase-in. So the $500,000 minus the 130 that we have received in 2018 for Giant Tiger's growth leaves us with 376,000 for capital. We anticipate to increase our transfers to reserves in 2019 by an additional 65,000, just rounding that number. So that leaves only 315,909 for capital. Last year, in 2018, we supported capital to the tune of 998,799. So if we use what we have in growth plus what we had supported it by last year, the amount available for 2019 capital with a 0% increase in tax rate is 1.3. Unfortunately, our draft capital projects are at 2.8.
Well, where's your money going into reserves that we just talked about?
I'm only showing the amount that's different from last year to this year, the 65,000.
No, but that's not what I had asked for.
Because last year's amount was already supported by taxation, already in the original number, so this is just the additional number. I'm breaking out the additional amount of money.
Well, I'm going back to this second page that we've got in front of us here, we're coming to. And I don't think I'm getting, it's the top of the page is labeled 4B, this 2019 draft budget summary. All right, now, when I look at the taxation revenue, which is the very first line across the top, the budgeted revenue for 2018 was 4.942 million. The actual revenue was 4.949, which looks like it's about $7,000 more than budgeted. The draft budget for 2019 shows taxation revenue of $5,581,000, an increase of $638,000. It's that $638,000 that I want to look at.
Which
I
is,
know what if I go down to the second line, you had anticipated receiving an additional $200,000 of supplementary tax revenue and actually received 442 of supplemental revenue. And I know you're not going to get the same supplemental revenue in 2019. You're going to get, you're estimating, about $70,000. That's still going to make your total increase. I don't see how you can take the 638 minus the 130. The 638 is still coming to you. Well, let me try a different way of looking at it. Maybe, I just don't understand how you're getting this where you are.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe that every year we have supplemental income
Yes, we
in
do.
the taxation line. And that comes from reassessments, people who are fighting the impact and all that kind of stuff, and lose and whatever. So in years past, before the giant tiger thing popped in on it, we were getting supplemental income from a taxation point of view. And you would have the records for all of that and know what kind of historical averages we would get. Now, in 2018, we got giant tiger 6 months of income, tax income. That's simply because they became on stream and we fired them up in 18. MPAC had done the assessment and so on. And they got a tax bill. So
For 2018.
for 2018. And so that money came into us, and did you book it in 18?
yep,
So that's booked into the 18 numbers, right?
yes,
And was it booked in as supplemental income?
correct.
So, and it was 130,000 roughly, or
No,
no?
no, the 130 comes from
Like,
the,
it's an aggregate. The 130 is an aggregate of giant tiger and whatever residentials and other stuff are gonna come in.
Well,
130 is the
variance.
difference. The 130 is the difference between what I booked as a budget number for
Okay.
2018
Okay.
to what I'm budgeting for
Gotcha,
2018.
okay,
So it's really just a shift.
yeah.
So in 18, I overestimated my supplementary,
Right,
and in 19, I'm underestimating it.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know, before, in 18, we were basing our tax rate on, I guess that we were gonna get a $200,000 supplementary. So that, basically, we were able to build in a little bit of extra revenue. In 2019, I'm taking that revenue away because I don't anticipate the same amount of supplementary.
So I still don't understand why we're minusing money that we got in 18. Like, Like, why don't we just say, we estimate the supplementary for 19 to be X?
And I do, 70,000, and the difference between 18 and 19 is 130. That's the difference, of the shift in where the money is.
But, so, the 506, 550 includes the 130?
No, you're getting that confused, I'm sorry.
Like, why are we taking 130? Like, we're taking money away from 506, 550.
Correct. Because
It's
we've already,
non-existent money. I don't understand that. Like, if the 506, 550 is real dollars sitting on the table here, why are we taking 130,000 of it?
So that's where I'm having my problem.
Perhaps I could help.
maybe someone else has a different way of expressing it.
I think, from my perspective, and y'all know that, treasury is not my area of expertise, but what we're anticipating is a 7.5% increase in total revenue for the township in 2019. So the total revenue increase is going to be, from a budget perspective, is 556,271. Which is what you see on that other page, under taxation revenue, 556,271.
Okay, and I think that that's a good clarification that you've given us there, because you're anticipating that you're gonna have taxation revenues of 7.596 million,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Compared to 7,358,000. In other words,
Compared to
an
the budget.
increase of 556, right?
Yes, which is budget over budget.
Right, which is budget over budget, but in that number, I'm just looking to see, yes, you've taken your grants in lieu, and you've reduced them by 47, right?
No,
No, we've
No,
increased.
that's an increase. That's an increase.
it's budget over budget. The variance line is budget over
Yeah.
budget.
Yes, budget over budget.
So I think if we look at that bottom line revenue variance of 556,000, and we see that 131 of that is from phase-in. The remainder is growth
So-
assessment.
So the 638 included the 130 that we got as supplementary in 18.
In 18.
So to make it budget over budget, you gotta pull it out of there.
I've got to pull it
Yeah,
in.
I understand.
Okay, from that point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 7.56,
7.9.
7.596, is that what you're saying?
no, the 7.56 at the far right there. And that's a percent. The 7.56 is a percentage increase, budget over
Budget.
budget.
Budget, yeah.
But I think this is a little bit more. I'm still, in my head, I'm saying to myself, I got $638,000 of additional revenue more than I had last year.
But actually what you've
No.
got is
No,
556,000.
you don't have 638.
No.
You only have 556.
Yes.
Yeah, but compared to what I had budgeted last year. Compared to what I had budgeted last year.
You're 550.
It's an
Yeah,
unusual
if you subtract the
situation,
numbers, you get that number, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, in that we rarely would budget so high for supplementary and then drop it the next year. I mean, that's an extremely unusual thing. Usually our supplementaries about the same year
Yeah,
over
yeah.
year over year.
Yeah.
And we almost always get the same growth. So it's just a very strange effect on the budget in this year because of the Giant Tiger assessment, first of all, but then because of the assessment from Giant Tiger actually coming in so much higher than we had anticipated.
Okay, so let's go back to basics here then. So we've got this sheet in front of us that shows what we're gonna generate, 131,000 as a result of phase-in. And you're telling me 376,000 additional as a result of growth. So then I wanted to know where that was going. And somebody, you're telling me that some of it is going to operating.
No, none of it is going to operating.
No,
Not the phase-in is going to operating.
The phase-in is, well, that's part of it though.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the.
127 of it is going to operating.
That's only the phase-in.
Yeah,
Okay, so the growth money
yeah.
on the treasurer's sheet here is entirely to capital projects.
capital and reserves.
But where's what's going to reserves?
There,
It's
this
broken
sheet
out.
just shows it all going to capital.
Well, of course, it says amount from growth available for capital projects or
Yeah.
to transfer to reserves. And I see that number as 315.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, now, I'm going back to the reserve sheet that we talked about a minute ago. If I can find it again. We got budgeted transfers in. Budgeted transfers in of 359 and 291.
no,
Go ahead, Molly.
okay. The numbers that are on your first sheet that we looked at, those are included in the budget itself.
They're what?
They were included in the draft budget. The 315 is what's available for capital or additional transfers too.
Yeah. Over and above.
It's over and above.
Over and above the 359 and the 291?
Yes, it is.
So if I go back to this reserve sheet, the 359 is already budgeted to go into the reserves.
Yes.
And the 291 is already budgeted to go into those reserves.
Correct.
And I've got another 315 that can either transfer to reserves or spend on capital.
That is correct.
There's more money washing around here than I can keep track of. Okay. Questions? All right, so now, we're at item 4C, and my understanding is that the staff wants to explain to us that the changes that they made in their original submissions to get to where?
2.19% increase in operational spending.
To get to a 2.19 increase in operational spending. Okay, so staff's got the floor. The first is the council and admin budgets. 4C sub 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to point out that the deputy clerk is away this week, so in an effort to keep good minutes, I have 2 recording devices going, just so you know I have both audio and the video.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate that. So a couple things, first of all, sort of overall, managers drafted their 2019 operational budgets based on no change to the level of service. In other words, we didn't budget to increase services, we didn't budget to decrease services. We budgeted based on continuing to provide the same level of service in a department that we currently do. We've done many line-by-line reviews in each department. Department heads do it on their own, then they do it in conjunction with the treasurer, then we look at it all together. Where we find anomalies, we go back and do trending over the past few years to see whether there is a trend or whether it isn't just a one-off. Make sure that we're not just looking at last year's budget and adding the cost of living. When committee challenged staff to lower the percentage increase on the operational budget, we did that again from the point of view of not changing the level of service. In other words, we went back to the budget and said, okay, what can we cut without changing levels of service? So for the most part, the things that we've identified to pull out of the budget are things that could be deferred to another budget cycle. So not necessarily things that don't need to be done at all, but that possibly don't need to be done in 2019. Those projects were noted in the budget documents provided to you a couple weeks ago, either in the executive summary or in the detailed budget sheets. Now, having said all that, the council budget was not adjusted a whole lot from 2018 to 2019. We included some CPP increase and a little increase in the recognition line, because we know there are some long service awards coming this year. And it was highlighted in the summary sheets, but I do want to have a conversation in this meeting with respect to two particular line items in the council budget. One is conferences and conventions, and the other is mileage. So we know with new council and new council members, there's educational opportunities that need to be taken advantage of. We currently have $3,500 in the conference and convention line item for council. And at the moment, already 3 weeks in, we are fully committed in that line item. We have a member going to Roma, a member going to Good Roads, and a member going to AMO. It costs roughly $1,000 for someone to attend a conference. So my suggestion is that that line should be increased by at least $2,500 to make sure that those folks who want opportunity for those conferences and conventions and educational opportunities can do so. The other item that I think we need to take a hard look at is the mileage. We're anticipating more mileage claims this year than other years because of the changes to the tax exemption provision from CRA. And so $2,500 is from the 2018 budget, but I would expect, reasonably expect that would double for 2019. So my first budget reduction is an addition of $5,000 to the council budget, my suggestion. Moving into admin, we did have a couple of changes suggested there. One of the things that we were going to do in 2019 was a salary study. Last time it was done was 2012, and over the years, things sometimes get a little out of whack, especially if you're applying percentages to a salary grid. It tends to move the top further apart from the bottom of the grid. It's not absolutely necessary that we do it this year, but I have noticed in recruitment the last couple of positions that we're finding it a bit difficult. We're not maybe as competitive as we should be with our range. I had a quote to get the work done from Cornerstone's Management, which is the company that we used in 2012, of $5,000, but we don't absolutely have to do that. The other is the boardroom table. Anybody who sat at it and pushed on it a little bit will realize it's getting pretty rickety, but it could potentially, look at the Mike's guys in to put some brackets in and stable it up. We can put off purchasing that until next year. I had a quote of $3,000 to replace that. However,
So, just going back to the 5,000, for the salary grid review, the 5,000 was just the work, it wasn't the adjustments in the grid.
oh, that's absolutely correct. In fact, I did not anticipate a budget impact from the adjustments to the grid. I would expect that what would change would be the grid, not the actual salaries of the people within it. It won't be such a significant change that people would automatically receive an increase in salary. It would just mean that the upper end of that grid range was moved so that folks had opportunity to move up a little further. That was my anticipation.
Can I ask a question of the clerk through you, Mr. Mayor? 4C, the line, the information in 4C, which we're looking at right now.
Yep.
And so when you say the 3,000 for the boardroom table, we can compare this with with the first line or second line on 4B, right?
Yes, and,
Like it's the piece within 4B that you're taking out or putting in or
Yeah.
reviewing. And that comports with the detail sheets from the first meeting in January, right?
so, however, the other thing that happened since our last meeting 2 weeks ago was that I did get a quote from Kevin Spencer to do some emergency management planning work. Shelley McFarland had been our emergency information officer and had been charged with making sure our emergency program met all the requirements throughout the year. It's a relatively onerous task, and the new community development coordinator has not been trained, so 2019 is going to be a bit of a challenge. And when I asked Mr. Spencer to take a look at it and let us know how he might manage that, on a per hour basis, it's going to be a whole lot less expensive to contract that work than to do it in-house. And take quite a bit of burden off myself and Mr. Grant, who is the other alternate CEMC. So, I guess a bit of a trade-off. I'll give you my salary grid review, but I'd like an emergency management program help, please. So net change then in the admin budget is a reduction of $3,000 basically for the boardroom table.
That's the table in that room.
Yeah.
Okay, but, so, when I look at the 2019 draft budget, well, it's marked January the 17th. And it shows the admin at 826. And then this one that I've got in front of me marked January the 18th, it also shows 826. So I have to go back one more to see where the changes are, is that what you're
That's
telling?
correct. You have to go back to the one that we saw on
Well,
January
it said
7th.
832.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So you started with 832, 510. You reduced by 5, you added 5, and you reduced by 3?
Mhm.
And suggesting 5 more.
Sure.
Well, the mileage thing and the conference thing's a big thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, we can budget low, but if you exceed your budget, you still have to spend money. So I mean, it just realistically, we can expect to spend more money than that.
Yeah, just a reminder to members of council that the federal government changes to our honorarium. 1/3 of our honorariums up until January the 1st, right back as far as I can remember, back into the 70s, 1/3 of our honorariums were deemed to be expenses, and they were not taxed. Now, we're going to be taxed on our entire honorarium, which means that we have basically no expense allowance. Some municipalities have increased their municipal honorariums to reflect that. Counties did, and I think Augusta did, if I'm right. We have not. We have not adjusted our honorariums. Now, I'm just going to signal it so that there's never any misunderstanding. In the previous times that I've been on council, I was very seldom that I would claim 100% of my mileage. I never did. I claimed a small portion of it, maybe 10% when I was leaving the township. But now I'm going to be forced to claim my mileages because my mileages are just way too high to absorb personally. So I don't know what the rest of you intend to do, but I intend to claim my mileages. You're, sorry?
As well.
And you, so I'm hearing this around the table. And I know that as much as I say I'm going to claim them, I'll end up claiming about 50% of them, but it's going to be considerably more than last year. So, you're suggesting an increase of 5,000 in the council budget. if I'm looking at 20, and I'm looking at the sheet that's now marked 2019 draft budget summary, 4B, last year was budgeted under council for 93,850. Actual spent was 89,702. And this year budgeted 95,300. So the actual 95,300 that's in the budget is in fact 5,000 higher than last year's actual. Would that not be sufficient to cover our increased conferences and mileages?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, last year in 2018, yes, we budgeted 3,500 for conference and convention, but only 1,000 was spent.
Budgeted what?
3,500, but only 1,000 was actually expended.
Right.
So, yes, the spending was lower, but that doesn't mean that I anticipate it will be lower again this year.
No, I understand.
So,
Yeah.
so the difference in last year's to this year's budget, certainly there's a few hundred here and a few hundred there. But those numbers that I'm proposing to increase, I expect to be expended. The reason we haven't spent it, we didn't hit the actual number.
No, but are you proposing an increase above the 95,300?
Yes. The
Of
98
how much? Above the 95,300?
to 5,000 more.
5,000 more.
Yeah.
So
So it's gonna be 100,000, is that what you're saying, Deb?
Yeah. 100,000.
Thank you.
But going to your mileages last year, what did you budget, what was budgeted for mileages?
2,500.
And what was claimed?
18.
18.
But there's still some, there's still some 2018 to come.
There's more since that.
Oh, there's more to come.
Lots
Oh, I
more.
see, so it's not
Yeah.
complete yet.
Yeah.
No.
So the 89,702 is not 100% accurate yet.
Not yet.
Okay, well, what's it?
That was another question I was gonna ask, is the 2018 year-to-dates, are they,
Pre-audit.
and are they sort of, have all your invoices come in yet, or?
No, we typically get invoices right into the end of January
Okay,
for
And a
December.
couple of them are big ones. So we have, our legal invoices usually
Yeah,
pretty high, and we
yeah.
don't see that until near the end of January.
okay, well, where does that money go, the legal?
Usually admin. And, I guess one of the things maybe we should talk about a little bit is that currently, if you look at the surplus from last year, it's $370,000.
Yeah.
And we know that we're gonna whip 169,000 out of that into 2019 spending.
Well, that's another question I have about WHIP. What's the definition of WHIP?
A work in progress. So
I
we've
know
already.
what the
we've
words
already-
mean, but
Yeah, so we've already taxed people for that in 2018.
have we started the work?
We started it but not finished it, so we moved that
So
money.
it's not a question that we budgeted it, but didn't start it, and we're moving it?
Well, not
We
in most-
budgeted, huh?
In most cases, we budgeted, started, didn't get it finished, didn't expend all the money,
Yeah.
so.
But if we haven't started it, why would we whip it?
Because typically we don't. The only one
Okay.
I think in there that was whipped is the Spencerville Arena compressor.
And the transfer site.
Oh, and the transfer site.
But we
yeah.
would whip that money or put it into reserves because we've taxed for it.
Yeah, we've already, rather
Right.
than tax for it.
Reserves is okay.
So-
But I don't like the idea, personally, I don't like the idea of moving money from one budget to another under the WHIP program where we haven't started the work.
Yeah, so those projects were discussed 2 weeks ago at Admin Finance, and the motion is coming before council tonight to whip.
Yeah, there's a
that money.
note in here about
Yeah.
how much money it is.
So, but if I could just go back to that for a second, the 163,959 that we're whipping, after we take that away from our surplus, leaves us less than $200,000 surplus. And if we take the extra revenue that we gained from Giant Tiger away from that, our operating budget to actual is, in fact, we might have also, we might have almost been at a little bit of a deficit. It's not that we've overtaxed or underspent.
On a global basis.
Yeah.
but individual departments are sure discrepancies.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Okay, I took the 4B sheet
Yeah.
and there's just information. I didn't look at the 19 budget, but I did look at the 18 budget, the 18 actuals, and I realized that there might be money not come in yet. But of the, if you look at those two columns on the left, the 18 budget, 18 actual, there's 19 departments or subdivisions that we operate with. And of the 19, 13 of them are under budget, and 6 of them are over. The 13 under budget are $198,000 roughly a bit, and the 6 over are $230,000. And there's 2 that jump out at us, okay? There's actually 3, and I don't know, the third one is, it kind of needs to be explained to me. But anyway, thick head. Of course, the public works is about 170,000 over, and the so it's kind of a big one. And the next biggest one is 28. So I don't know, losing a voice. You'll all be happy about it. Anyway, but also on the underspends, there's a remarkable amount of money underspent in recreation, like $92,000 that we didn't spend, but we budgeted for. So, and I understand budgets are estimates, and it's always going to be wrong in the sense that from a probability point of view, you can pretty much guarantee that. But I think it's striking that there's wide variances in some of the departments. The other thing that kind of
Just before you go on, Hank, so I've got that one marked here on my sheet. So I've got the line is called recreation facilities, and it was $942 budgeted and $850 spent. With using the year-to-date actuals and understanding that there may be other actuals that will come in that will raise that number above 850. But my question is, it's not really just recreation facilities, is it? Isn't it? Is it just the parks, the pools, and the arenas? Or does it include this building and, no, the fire department building? It's just the recreation facilities? Holy cow.
The third item that I kind of, I don't know, I don't understand why we do it this way, but in building inspection, we have no budget,
Yeah.
but we have a budget, but we show no budget.
The building inspection.
And the way we did it was we took the money that came in for permits, et cetera, and a little bit out of reserves, I don't know, 15,000 I think was out of reserves, and zeroed it out so that we didn't have a out of the pocket
I know, but was there
expenditure.
not a budgeted amount?
But
Why would there be a budgeted?
Can we do
Could we-
one question at a time?
yeah,
So I thought it was the same question.
so-
Well, it is, but it's just the detail of that budget.
Yeah,
the
yeah, again, you
expenditure
can find
is
it
there,
there.
and the revenue is to offset those
Yeah.
expenditures. So the net budget is zero
zero.
To
Yeah, it's
to
just-
taxation
Do we do that? Do we do that frequently?
You have to do it.
every year with the building inspector.
Only that
The
department?
revenue for building inspection, building services is supposed to be covered by permit fees. So every year we budget to zero.
That's a policy, in other words.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay,
And
but so on the revenue side, we should make the revenue side balance with the expense side.
right,
Which we will, you're right.
which we have tried
They
to
do in the detail,
but-
but they don't on the summary sheet.
But in this year's, in the 2018 year, our revenue was too low to cover our building inspection expenses by $16,000.
Yeah, that was, I understand it was too low by that, but what did we budget the expenses to be?
122,585.
Okay, so then we should have budgeted the revenue to be that much.
100, that's correct, that's exactly what we did.
Okay, so on my sheet here, where I show the budget as blank,
Mhm.
it should be showing 122,585.
If that was just the expenditure side, yeah.
No, that's, oh, I see, because
Yeah,
the
there's no revenue.
revenues are budgeted. Well, go back to council, it shows 93,000 as an expenditure. Oh, yes, okay, it shows 93,000 as an expenditure, so under the building inspection, it would show 0 as an expenditure.
Yes,
Okay.
and the revenue that is up above there. You know,
Okay, so then what's the year-to-date actual mean then?
The year-to-date actual on the building inspections is the expenditures, which, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, the expenditures in that department were 112,000. Revenues were 99,600. I expect the revenues haven't changed much, but the expenses have gone up a little bit more since then, because we've had some mileage and salary.
Now we transfer from that fund.
And we transfer from the reserve to cover it. Now, we're gonna have to take a look at that when we get down to that line item as well, because that's pretty much does in the reserve in that department.
There's not much, 4,000 or something.
Yeah, one of the downsides to not having charged Giant Tiger for full building permit fees is we didn't get that money.
Coming home to roost, right?
Yeah, so that would have given us a really healthy reserve, but anyway, it was a good business decision, but it, you know, we are, and we're not alone in this. Small municipalities that employ a full-time building inspector often have to find ways, creative ways to fund that position. It's important to have it, but if you get a year in which your permit fees don't cover your building expenses, it's,
It's hard to budget it too, when you don't know what's gonna happen
yeah, we
to
look
the
at,
industry.
yeah, we look at last year and go, okay, maybe we'll get that much again this year.
Yeah, but you get excited, yeah, but you don't know how many houses. It's a
Yeah, again, it's,
shot in the sky.
Well, the chances of getting another Giant Tiger are pretty zero.
Yeah.
oh, wouldn't help it any.
Wouldn't help the building.
Yeah, could you help me out here, please, for? Are you saying that our first budget, you came in at 897,510?
I'm sorry.
897,510 was your first budget, 4.414 for administration, and now you're coming in at 826. I just wanna,
What's the number we're looking, oh, 826,000.
826 is what you're coming into today, right?
Right.
Where-
At
whoa, whoa.
3.42,
Where are you?
under administration.
Admin.
Under administration 4B, 826,510.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yep.
And all I'm saying is I'm going back to the January 3rd, that you had a budget of 897,510, is that right?
832.
832.
832,510.
832?
Yep.
What do I have, total administration, 897,510?
I don't know. That's 832,510.
832.
That's dated 3rd of.
What page is that, Jack? On the January 3rd?
On the January, early
Third.
January 3rd meeting?
Yeah, it's the
That's page 1 of,
2019 draft.
under this pinky separator,
Page 1?
right after the pink or yellow or whatever color you want to call that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I understand what you're looking at, Councilor Dillabaugh. You're looking at the total administration, which includes the proposed capital.
Oh, yeah, you're on the page, you're on the detail sheet.
Detail page, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
go on the summary sheet though.
but it's 897,510, isn't it, what's your budget?
With capital.
With capital, but we haven't talked about capital. At this point, we're just reviewing the operations.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I still can't find my 832 though.
Well, you go back to that, have you got a pink, this kind of color?
Yeah,
Orange, yeah.
Yeah, go to the next sheet
there it is.
and look at administration. That's only the expense side.
You gotta go one more there.
Yeah, maybe I switched my around. Page one, right
Thank
after.
you.
Got it?
Got it.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so now the chair is looking for a direction here. So we're just starting into this analysis of where changes were made, and the CAO is bringing up the concept of increasing the council budget by 2,500 plus 2,500 to accommodate additional conference and mileage expenses. I don't know whether, I think what we probably should do is just note all of these recommended changes as we go through here, and then see what impact that will have, rather than be dealing with each one individually as we go. So I'm just gonna note it on my sheet and not ask for consensus as to how to address it.
So are we increasing it to 100,000?
No,
Mr.
we're
Mayor?
not, we're not making that decision.
No, but is that what we're gonna put our little notes, 100,000?
25 plus 25 plus 25 is what we're gonna put.
Takes 200.
It's 5,000, but we got the 95 that she budgeted for. So
Yeah.
we're saying 100,000.
Yep.
Where's this?
On the summary sheet.
Yes.
He's going from page 4B.
4B at 80, at 95,300,
Yeah.
Plus 5,000.
plus 5,000.
Where's that?
100,000.
Where's that on the details?
One council under operating expenses.
It's not here, it doesn't say five.
It says 95.
It'd be 4C,
So it's not on this 4C sheet.
4B, no, not yet.
So we want to put it on, is that what we want to do?
Yeah.
That's what the CAO
going
is
from
saying.
95,300 to 100,003. Is that right, Mr. Mayor?
Well,
Yeah.
at this point, I'm marking it as a recommendation.
Of 100,300 though, right?
No, just leave it as it, leave it on the side.
That's
of the margin.
95,300?
No, I have a recommendation that we increase it by 25 plus 25. That's it. Now, where that would take us, it would be 100, but we're not there yet. At this point, we're dealing with a recommendation to go up by 25 plus 25.
So we're not changing the numbers, we're just noting.
Yeah. We're just noting. What is the net effect it has when we get to the bottom here? Okay, so let's go to the administration. You're taking 5 out, adding 5 back, and taking 3 out.
That's correct.
And that is gonna take us from the 832 to the 826.
Right.
But when I take 3 out of 832, I don't get to 826.
There was something, what
No, no.
happened there?
You did not adding 5 and taking 5. It's
Three
just
doesn't-
3 out.
Oh, but we went from
832,
832
10.
to
832, 510. Previous submission.
Came out
understand.
for 6.
We'll have to double check that, Mr. Mayor. It feels like we're
Doubled up.
doubled up
3.
somewhere, but we'll take a hard look at that, because it is a change of 6,000 from the last one, and
The last one.
we'll have to
It was
take
832
another
to
look at that.
826.
Yeah, it's a reduction of 6.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we'll just leave question marks there. By the way, the answer to that question would make the answer to the previous question easier. Okay, so now I'm
Wait a
under,
minute. You can't take my budget for your budget.
well, remember, there's only one taxpayer. So I'm at 4C, sub 2, and sub 2 is the fire and the fire chief.
4C.
Now, so the fire chief wants an opportunity to explain what?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2017, when we were hosting our EMS boot camp, we had an issue with the sewage pump at Station 1. We had a company come in to pump the tank out, and the problem turned out to be an electrical problem, but he did recommend at that time that with the age of the pump being original to the new fire hall, which is now 19 years old, he did recommend that we start thinking about replacement. It's been running fine ever since, so I'm thinking that's probably something that we can hold off until next year.
Okay, so now,
Is it a macerator pump? Is it a macerator pump?
No, it's a lift pump
So it's pumping up to the tank?
to the septic system.
Yeah, yeah.
okay, and it's in as an operating item because it doesn't meet our threshold for capital. Threshold for capital is what, $5,000 or 10? Just a refresher.
5.
5. Threshold for capital is 5. Okay, so that explains, so then, your fire department goes from initial submission, which was 513,274, reduced by 2 to 511,274. Fair enough. Okay, I accept your explanation. You've made your point. Now, I'm at item 4C sub 3, Public Works and Storm, the Director of Operations. You got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is under line item 355616, and it's 50,000. This is an addition. We had 70,000 in the 2018 portion of the budget to perform some crack sealing and larger patches through the township as part of our entire road network program. The crack sealing and some of those patching, it's considered more in the operation and maintenance portion of the budget than it really should be in capital. So it was shifted over with 50,000 moving from what was in capital last year to operational this year. So because this was an addition to the operational portion, it could be removed. Obviously, the corresponding issues could be further deterioration of the road network and you know, an increase in making the repairs temporary, short-term with coal patch and other material instead of a mid-range repair.
So you're saying the 50. Now I'm at your initial submission, which was 1.756. 1.756, 839 actually. And you're saying in that you had 50, which was for crack sealing, which you're
Crack sealing and patching, additional patching.
which you're going to remove from the operation, take it out, right?
Which is something that we would no longer receive, no longer perform.
Well, now you're at 1,706,839, and you're saying that if that patch sealing and crack sealing and patching was to be done, it would be treated or come forward as a capital thing.
No, Mr. Mayor, it would. It really is an operational item, so it would actually go by the wayside. That the crack sealing and those patching items would not take place.
Work wouldn't be done.
That work would not be done.
Yeah. Can you explain the definition, the provincial definitions, just for my sake, because
Well, I would characterize it as items that your Short-term prolonging the life of that asset would fall under your operation and maintenance versus what you would consider a replacement of that asset. So if you were resurfacing the entire road, that would fall under capital. If you're performing crack sealing in small patches, you're not really, you're slightly extending the life, but really it's more of a year-to-year item or short-term extension.
So did you find if you cut out 8 feet of the road and resurface it, it's capital, and
No,
if
it
you
would-
do 4 feet, it's operational, or, I mean, is it
Well,
worded in
within-
what I'm getting at, is it worded in an ambiguous way in the provincial guidelines?
Well, I would certainly not say that it goes, if it's 10 feet, it's operational, if it's 12 feet, it's capital. But within that section of road network, if you're in a kilometer of road, if you're replacing 25 feet, I would not consider that a capital,
Yeah.
that item.
So it's
I would characterize
ambiguous.
it, if you'd like to word it that way,
Yeah.
certainly.
Okay, so you take that 50 out.
Correct.
The crack sealing and the patching doesn't get done, and you reduce from 1,756,000 to 1,706,000, and you got another 20. What's the 20?
Correct. Now, that was 20.
Oh,
that-
sorry.
Can I ask
Sorry.
a question on the 50 before we go in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, of the 50 that was budgeted, what was the actual amount used from that?
Last year.
In 2018?
Sure.
2018, we budgeted 70. We used a little over 50, and we kept 20,000. We knew midway through the year that our vehicle expenses were skyrocketing, and we brought that forward to council and said we would not do that additional 20,000 worth of work. We would keep that to try to keep costs down, knowing that the vehicle expenses were somewhat skyrocketing as they continued to do.
One question further. So, we're talking budget, but were there any, due to that reduction, were there any claims pushed forward, or did anybody ask for damaged vehicle repair costs or anything like that as a result of, potholes not being maintained?
Through the chair, I wouldn't be able to correlate particular patch spots.
Nobody made a claim.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so then you're proposing an additional 20 to come down.
Correct. In looking at our, the reserves for winter operations, we're currently at 90,000 in reserve for overages for your annual winter operations. So the feeling is that there's some room there that you could not necessarily put that 20,000 additional in to bring it up to 110. You could keep it at 90,000 for 2019.
Okay, so then the effect of this item, the effect of this $20,000 item is to remove a $20,000 transfer to reserves.
Correct.
Okay. But I want to go back to the Deputy Mayor's question, which concerned the patching and the crack sealing of 50. And you said last year the actual expenditure was 50.
For that item,
Purpose.
that was under capital.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for purpose. Okay, no, it was under capital, not under operation?
That portion was under capital. We have 50,000, or it might not, is it 50? 50,000 traditionally in operating for patching and resurfacing as well.
Okay, now is that 50 that we still have in embedded in the 1.686 that I see in front of me?
That is correct.
Okay, so I got 50 in, I just don't have an enhanced program of 50 plus 50.
You do not have the program that was started in 2018 continued, correct?
You don't have the program that was started in 2018. I'm losing my program. I've got a program, but it's not as robust in 2019 as it was in 2018.
That would be a good way to characterize it.
50 grand short.
Hmm?
2018 was the first year for that program.
Yes, I remember. And we
That,
were- and
I'm
we
sorry,
were-
Deb?
That program, that crack sealing and pavement preservation program, that was the first year for it.
First year that we done
Yeah.
it, budget for it?
And just for the benefit of the new members, I mean, we had several different presentations who impressed upon us how important it was to spend this money to prolong the life, if I can put it that way. Go ahead.
Was that the, the treatment that was put on, the street by the library, going down towards the fire hall?
That was done probably 4 years ago now, and it, yes, it is.
Is it that
it's a
same style?
That's a different technique, but yes, on the similar lines of pavement preservation.
Okay, so if the 20 I don't have any problem with, because I mean, clearly we got a reserve that's already there, we're just not increasing it. But the 50 of the patching and the crack sealing, I'm gonna mark that as an asterisk. Mark that as an asterisk with a potential ask. Knowing that we already have 50 in, the question is, do we need to beef it up again? Right? We already got 50 in.
That is correct, you have 50 in.
Expense or capital?
In operating.
Operating.
And it's in the 1.686.
That is correct.
Okay.
You did it, in the patching and resurface, you did spend the whole, you had 55,000 budget and you spent 55 last year, so if you're just putting 50 in this year, we're cutting that down, aren't we?
Yes, so this year, the initial ask was basically 100,000. 105, sorry, so 105,000. So we're dropping 50, so there would be 55,000 contained within that 1,686.
So you're just keeping the 55 that you had from last year.
Sorry?
You're just keeping 55 in for patching.
Yes.
Now that's in your public works. So your public works last year was budgeted at 1,607,000, and the actual spend was 1,778,000. So that was 170,000 over expenditure. Is that where the trucks are?
Yeah.
About 120,000 was overages in vehicle repairs.
Do we know why that is?
We're out.
Are you saying 170 grand was
They
because
were,
of truck repair that we went over?
Through the chair.
Well, it comes out to 171, but is that what you're saying?
120 of that 170 overage was due to vehicle repairs.
120?
Yes, if you look at
Was
the
vehicle.
detail,
Yes.
Yeah, but
Councillor Dillabaugh, if you look at the detail sheets, you'll see the breakdown of the different vehicles and what they expensed and so on. Dramatic increases. And the question is, from my part, sorry, Mr. Mayor, the question is, from my part, is that, I mean, we do have planned maintenance and we have emergency maintenance, obviously. Like, did we put transmissions in these things or something crap out on us somewhere that, left the thing high and dry and we had the towing fees and major vehicle or something? Like, normally we know when a vehicle needs service, and a lot of times there's unforeseen problems with the vehicle, but man, some of those overages are phenomenal.
Well, let's go back to basics before we move on. Let's go back to basics. What was the budgeted vehicle maintenance within that 1.607 million? What was the budgeted vehicle maintenance?
If you can just give me a second.
253, 314 was their
253,
budget,
314, yes.
and the actual was 344.
314.
Is that right?
Hang on just one second, 'cause I get to. So what was the budgeted?
253.
It's 253, 314.
253, 314.
Yes.
And what was the actual?
344, 907. And there may be more coming in, we don't.
Okay, so the differential between the budgeted and the actual,
So
should be able to get it here in a minute.
about 90, 91.
91,593.
So,
What is it?
91,593.
Okay, so there's where we need to focus. So, I'm focused there. Help me out. I'm really focused on that 300 grand.
okay. Well, I guess for the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years, in the recommendations was starting to replace the fleet, the fleet. Those items never got incorporated into the budget. We're now running vehicles that are 2001, 2003, 2004. They're wore out. The recommendation typically province-wide is around 12 years for those type of vehicles, and then they're kind of replaced, basically considering that they're involved in salt and sand and those abrasive materials. They just start to wear out and break down. And your costs can go from reasonable 1 year to extremely high in another.
What's the T4 vehicle? You know what year it is?
It's a 2001.
Is it a half-ton, three-quarter, one?
It's a tandem axle dump truck. So within
You know
the,
the clicks?
sorry?
How many clicks on it?
Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure.
Sorry?
Do you have the report? Could you reference the number of kilometers for, it would be V0401?
Sorry, what number?
V0401?
0401, 175,000.
Just broken.
I think, is that kilometers? Yes,
Yes, kilometers.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Just broken in.
175,000 kilometers.
Yeah,
It's
just
201.
If
Not broke in a plow
you were driving a passenger
Put it in
vehicle,
mileage, turn it to miles. It's
It's low mileage
it's
compared
60
to.
miles, 60,000 miles.
but you're forgetting the activities that it performs.
No, I understand that, okay?
Well, but you can't go by kilometers and miles for a
Well,
vehicle
well,
that
there was a-
performs particular activities versus one that goes out for a
Okay,
Sunday
so it's a
drive.
dump. Okay, so did the hydraulic system go on it, or what was the cause of going from a budget of 12.5 to spending 48,000?
Structural components failed.
So what
In
kind of
the
things?
engine of the vehicle, or where? Like-
Part of the engine, part of the body of the vehicle, the frame.
Hmm.
So,
2001.
I'm not, well, I guess I am. Could it be abuse of our vehicles from drivers, operators? I know, for example, we had one a couple weeks ago at our fleet. We got 27 oil trucks, 17 propane. We got 2 on construction only. The one is always in trouble. Expense, expense, expense. We understand why. He goes down the construction road at 40 clicks when you should be doing 20. Our chassis are all beat up. So we found out that's what it was, drivers. Could it be some of this?
Through the chair, there's certainly we're always looking at improving our training and we have.
All I'm saying, do they wait until it breaks, or do they say, hey, I hear something, we should look at it? If a bearing's going or whatever, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, so typically they are very proactive, and I would hazard a guess that in certain cases, if they didn't have the care for the vehicle that they had, we probably would have been replacing that vehicle a lot sooner than now. In the reality, they've maintained and extended the life of those.
With the operators we have,
The operators
you're
that
saying.
we have, that is correct.
Thank you.
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
I'd like to add, two of these trucks that have had a major maintenance on, probably have two of the best drivers we got on them. And they well looked after these trucks, but these trucks are worn out. They were scheduled to be replaced 5 years ago, they weren't. The last truck we bought was in 2014 or 2013.
No, that's not true.
Yep.
2014.
The last heavy truck,
Yeah.
Haven't been a truck since
I
I've
thought we replaced one just the last year or so.
214, I think, is it.
That's the newest
Is that
truck
the
we got.
newest? And that's number 6. Is that right?
That's right.
Dave?
That's correct.
And this got 6,000 on it. Kilometers.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a 2014 truck,
Yeah, 5 years old.
and it's got
Well, you
six.
might as well say 6 years old, 1,000 a year, 6,000 kilometers.
We can, yeah, I'll need to confirm that. There might be a number missing on that.
Sorry?
There might be a 0 missing on that.
Okay.
I don't expect that it is 6.
No.
Was that
So you're saying, so 60,000, sorry, 60,000, not 6,000.
That,
So it's 10,000 a year.
thank you,
That's right.
that does sound better.
Thank you. You're helping with my math. So it's 10 grand a year roughly.
10,000 kilometers a year roughly.
Well, there's one way of dealing with expensive maintenance. Contract them out. Let somebody else worry about the maintenance.
Those are certainly options. However, if we were to even go down that path, I would anticipate that we would put conditions in that we would want vehicles to be of a certain year or newer. We wouldn't be looking to have a 17-year-old vehicle doing our main plow routes in that kind of avenue. So I wouldn't anticipate that we would.
I know, but
do
then
that
on the other hand,
in-house.
we wouldn't have to spec new either. I mean, a 5-year-old vehicle would be perfectly adequate. But
And
what's
yes,
the other part
certainly
is,
certainly fair enough, and our truck 6 is 5 years old,
The other-
it is perfectly adequate.
the other part of it is, I mean, and I can't see the numbers here on a truck-by-truck basis, but I'm just wondering, if I could see it on a truck-by-truck basis, I'm wondering, why wouldn't we lease these trucks? Lease it for 5 years or lease it for 4 years, somebody else's problem. I mean, we're not gaining anything if we're spending this kind of money on maintenance. We're absorbing the entire capital cost of the truck plus the maintenance. Maybe we don't need to be absorbing that. Maybe we should be going to the lease market. We lease the truck for 4 years, we pay only the lease costs at the end of the 4 years, we get a new truck. Or 5 years, 6.
We could certainly explore that option.
Well, when, I'm heavily influenced when Councillor Hunter says these trucks are wore out. But I'm also influenced when I hear that we've got a 2001 or 2001 that's only got 175,000 kilometers on it.
it's not a good basis for comparison. And I have 157,000 kilometers on my Mustang, and I have no intention of replacing it. It's also 6 years old. But it doesn't get the hard use that a plow truck gets. You just can't compare your own personal vehicle with.
No, but I mean, not been in the equipment business too. You know, we used to,
You get a truck that's driving down the road as a gravel truck, that's just carrying a load of dumping, but they maybe do during the summertime, but you get a truck that's carrying 12 ton of sand on the back and pushing in 4-second gear down the road, pushing for all the power it's got, pushing plowing snow and winging snow back. It's a totally different operation than expecting a truck that's carrying a load of gravel or carrying a load of fuel down the road. They're not working, they're just rolling down the road. These trucks are working, the same as putting a tractor out in the field, just pulling a 4-4 plow and putting one out that's harrowing.
Deputy Mayor.
The bulk of the increase past the assumed maintenance cost, can it be defined to 1 or 2 vehicles, or is it spread out fairly equally over your fleet?
Yeah, it's fairly, some are high, Deputy Mayor.
So the main ones are truck 4, truck 5
Truck 4, what age?
is 2001.
Truck 5?
Truck 5 is a 2010, I believe.
Truck 4, a plow truck?
Truck 4 is a plow truck. So truck 3, truck 4, truck 5, truck 6, truck 7, truck 8 are all plow trucks.
How many of them?
There would be 6, 4 tandem and 2 single axle.
Where I'm going with it is if we're gonna reduce maintenance cost and the maintenance requirement seems to be spread out evenly over 6 or 7 of them, does it make any sense to actually look at replacing one of them with a lease when it's only gonna reduce it by, 1/6 of the overall maintenance cost?
Maybe.
Like if we can point it at 1 or 2 vehicles, then I would say it would make sense to, look at a lease for those 2 vehicles to replace them and put newer. But if we're looking at, we're trying to reduce 170 from the total maintenance. The maintenance number's not gonna go down, is it? Well, I guess it would if we
Could.
leased new ones. It
Well-
would take off the original 200,000.
And if I may, as soon as you put $20,000 into repairs, that extends the life of your vehicle a little bit. So,
But we didn't put 20,000 in, we put 344,000 in.
okay, if we can look at page 14 of the detailed budget, maybe that will help, because all the trucks there are listed and the repair and maintenance numbers are listed, and it's pretty clear when
So
you
this
look
is
at those.
the,
Truck 4 and truck 8 is 80,000 between the two, so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Dated 1/3/2018.
and the 2 that needs to go.
page 14, is it, Deb?
Yep,
Yeah.
page 14 of the detail there, line items 30, starting with 32, 56,
I don't think you'll spend 48 grand on truck 4 this year.
I'm really hoping not, yeah. It's very disheartening, both to management and to staff, to battle these breakdowns, for sure.
Yeah, because you take it out of service for a period of time, might be 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks, whatever the repair cost takes, right? So now you're down a truck. It has a ripple effect, if you wanna call it.
It certainly can.
Okay, so I'm on page 14 here. So, let me see if I can get to the nub of this. Is there any recommendation in the budget proposal, excuse me, we're getting some side conversations here going. Is there any recommendation in the proposed budget to replace 1 or 2 or others of these problem vehicles? I mean, there's been at least 2 questions asked, can we pinpoint specific vehicles? Are there any recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In your 2019 budget package that you received for the January 7th meeting, under the proposed capital projects for public works, under 2019 to 2021, there's a vehicle proposed for replacement for the next 3 years to get us back on track. So in this 2019 budget, there is a tandem axle put into the budget for replacement.
That's
No.
based on buying a new one?
Based on buying a new one, that is correct.
So you could probably lease 2 or 3 for,
The cost of one new one.
Well, we're starting in 2019, you're saying? That's just the pickup though, right?
No, we're proposing that a tandem axle be replaced in 2019.
truck 4 or truck 8?
In
Truck 4 would be the,
truck 4 in 2019?
yes.
So when you lease
So
it-
that's the 255 that's in the budget, in the
You
capital
got it for
budget.
2020 here.
Second,
That's the second one.
It's a what?
the second one, the second replacement in 2020.
But vehicle 4, right? You have it here, replacement year 2020.
When that, yes, when that was proposed, we hadn't had the extent of what the cost was going to be for truck 4.
Oh, I see. So you up-
it's
you
now,
upped
it's
it.
moved up to
Okay.
2019.
Now, when you say $250,000, is that the plow and all?
That would be the plow, wing, and.
Everything
the
new,
unit,
250, roughly?
Around 255.
Why, I do not understand why we are replacing plows and harnesses.
Through the chair, if you'll look at truck 5, repair, so about 29,000 in repairs.
28,393?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a sample of when you don't replace the plow, wing, and dump box and salter and sander unit. You don't get new when you get a new truck. You put old on new, you don't really gain very much. We've got a wing and plow and everything else that's falling apart costing us a lot of money.
So I've got the number, 28,393, my finger's on it.
Mhm.
How much of that related to the wing plow and harness?
Off the top of my head, I am not sure. I certainly can ask the road superintendent that the plow is rotten.
Plow has a hole in it, which we've patched. The metal's so thin on the plow that every time we touch it, try to weld to it, it can't weld to it. It's spent. And I'd say about 18,000 of that would basically, your snowplow equipment, be repaired.
And that's only 9 years old, right? It's a 210?
The truck is, but the.
Yeah. And then did that come with the plow and the harness and all that?
No,
210?
no, it did not.
Oh, it did not?
The chassis came,
Right.
2010, and the option was to use the existing dump box and equipment from my
Okay,
understanding.
so then the question becomes,
Mhm.
how old was that plow, wing, and harness?
For the 10 years on top of that.
So, should have been 16 years.
So,
Potentially.
so you should be able to. What I get out of that is that if a plow and harness is 10 years old, it probably should be replaced. But if it's less than 10 years old, of course, we wouldn't be replacing it, as we wouldn't be replacing that truck. Okay, so the argument is that if we're taking the truck to its maximum, the plow, harness, and wing are probably at their maximum at about the same time. That's the argument.
And the dump?
Yes. Replace it as a unit.
And when we take it, this leasing thing, if we take it from capital and expense it, does that present any problems from an accounting point of view?
But it's not the same advantage as private business though, because in private
Private
business,
business, you can claim the lease account.
well, the lease is a total write-off,
Yeah.
where if you buy it as a capital
Capital
item,
cost
you've got to
allowance.
depreciate it over the life of the asset.
Yeah, no, I really,
So you lose that advantage.
yes.
Mr. Mayor, the other way to look at it is you're not having to transfer operating funds to capital to pay for it then.
That's another point.
Yes, because that's basically what you're doing when you're spending that kind of money on
Definitely.
maintenance. You're transferring operating funds to capital, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
More discussion. Do we want a price on a leased vehicle as opposed to a outright purchase?
I think
Same
it's-
vehicle.
I think it's a good concept to look at and run down and just try to make an evaluation on, say, I don't know, the worst truck that in the fleet.
You're not
What would it
committed
cost
to
us to replace it
Yeah.
on a lease basis and a purchase basis? And it's very easy to do the present worth of annual charges, or whatever you wanna call it, net present value. You can do an analysis to say, well, annually it costs this to do that, or this to do that.
Well, the
Can
other
you do an NPV on that system of yours?
Not on my accounting system, no.
No. So have you got tools to do that? Yeah.
All right, so,
But also, just through the chair, remember that when you lease, at the end of that lease, the damages, et cetera, that are done to the truck,
You pay for it.
you're on the hook for.
Yeah. And I don't think you're gonna get much of a lease agreement for a salt and sand truck.
You don't think so,
That's
Joe?
what- That's exactly what I'm wondering.
We've been down that road with Tackleberry, and they ended up buying all new trucks when they took on 401.
Well, at least
End of
look
the
into
five-year
it.
contract was gonna cost him the same money. At the end of the five-year lease, he wasn't gonna have nothing, it was his. End of the five-year lease, maybe the trucks were beat up, but he still had something.
Really, we got nothing here.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting
5
to see
years.
the difference.
We have nothing here at 5 years,
No,
when you
I
start,
know we haven't.
when you start adding up your repair bills. So,
Probably on I would guess on a plow truck, from what I knew a few years ago, you're gonna get a 5-year, they'll give you a 5-year lease, and then the 5-year lease, you're gonna pay that or more the value of the truck, and you're gonna give the truck back. Or you look at our trucks, we've got trucks that've been running.
Have you
for
looked
10
into that,
10 years,
David, at all?
Pretty economical, some of them.
like the leasing part, no?
excuse me, don't want to get two conversations going here. Sorry.
At the end of the 5-year lease, you're probably gonna pay, I'm guessing here, but from the information I had, you're gonna pay the value of that truck in 5 years. Plus, as Hugh says, if there's damage done to it, you're gonna pay that out when you go to give it back. We've got trucks here that's run 10 years, and the last couple of years they've cost us money, but for the first 7 years, they run pretty economical for us. So if we buy it, we're gonna pay for it in 5 years, one way or another, on a lease or buy it out. If we own it, we've maybe got 2 or 3 years left on that truck, that it's not gonna cost the township much money to plow with that truck for 2 or 3 years. But if we lease it, we're turning right around, we got the same cost again, right?
Okay,
We're
so-
starting to pay again.
So your argument is that by owning, we have residual value at the end of a 5-year term, by leasing, we have nothing at the end of a 5-year term. So here's the question. It appears that what we've done is tried to stretch these longer than we should have.
We're getting,
How many have we overstretched?
3,
Their lifespan?
At least 3.
3.
3.
3.
Plus the equipment on 5,
Plus, sorry?
Plus the plow equipment?
plus the plow and sanding equipment on 5. That's cost us a lot.
Truck 5.
That's it in a nutshell as far as our costs this year, or last year.
If you were to replace 4, is the equipment, you know, the plow on 4 good enough to be put on 5?
That's the plan.
Mr. Mayor, has any consideration ever been given to all the municipalities, say in Leeds Granville, pooling their purchase power to buy trucks and plows and all the paraphernalia that goes with it?
Well, let me put it this way. From United Counties' point of view, anything that United Counties buys on a regular basis including their contracts for spraying, patching, etc. The townships are invited to tag on to the county programs. And it's a wide open invitation. Now, the county buys 3 heavy trucks per year, at least 3. And they appear to buy them as complete units. So they do tender for 3, and I'm sure that if we signaled in time, they'd be more than happy to tender for 4.
Yeah.
And I know that in the last few years, since Mr. Grant has become the Director of Operations, we have also tagged to a number of their other programs, and I'm thinking of ditch spraying, weed control. We've tagged on to that. We've tagged on to what other programs?
Some of the paving.
Well, the pavement preservation program that we did
Pavement
last year.
preservation program, and I think, did we tag on to the surface treatment program or not? I don't think they did any surface treatment last year, but we did.
Actually, I believe in 2017, we did tag on to them with the single surface treatment.
Now, the next question is, and you fellows that are in the business on a day-to-day basis, is there anything, do you gain anything if they, go back, say the question properly. If I'm tendering for 3 trucks, will I get any better unit price by tendering for 4?
Probably.
Do you think so?
Biggest thing you'll probably gain by tendering for 4 with the county, other than us tendering for 1 truck by ourselves, is delivery time. And if you're just ordering 1, you get sitting on the wait list to get it built for you, but if county's tendering, they happen to be buying 5 trucks that year, whoever gets it, they're gonna, your delivery time, you all of a sudden jump up ahead of all the individual ones that are buying 1 truck. They're gonna do those 5 trucks first.
So you gain in delivery time.
You know, and up like the last truck we bought in 2010, we waited, it was supposed to be here in September, and it didn't get here until December, I think it was, before we got it, so. And that's strictly because it was sitting in Kingston, waiting to get the harness and stuff put on it.
Yeah, we're the chair, I just noticed here too, we're all over the map here, right? We have Peterbilt's, we have internationals, we have, how come?
Because you're tendering.
Yes.
See, that's the problem when you tender.
Yeah.
You can spec, and the county
We're
does spec.
We're Western Star, and always have been, but I mean, we have a problem, they run for us. I think with this, if we go Peterbilt International, like cheap's not always the greatest or the best. You know, lowest tender's not necessarily the greatest thing to have either, it's service. And an opportunity, what's better, have we had, I should look it up, we should look into it. Is the Peterbilt outdo the international outdo the Peterbilts? Have we ever looked into that?
Well, off the top of my head, I can't say what unit might outperform the other.
No.
There's too many variations.
No, I realize that. All I'm saying is, have we found that does transmission go out of the Peterbilts more than the internationals? That's all. Something like that, or can we keep rates on one?
We should be at the point where we have I'm gonna call it a favorite, because he's the least expensive and he's the least worrisome. Now, how you translate that into new purchases, I don't know, because.
And let's not forget that when you only purchase a new truck every 5, 7, 10, 16 years, things change considerably at the manufacturing level. And I'll just point to our neighbors to the north here, Americville Wolford last year, their grader completely died. It required $75,000 worth of work to get it back on the road, and they mothballed it. They chose not to repair it.
We did the same thing, didn't we?
Wait, it was a 2013.
That happened years ago in Matilda Township.
So it was, last year a 5-year-old grader, and they had to mothball it. We're running on a 1987.
I wouldn't mothball. That never happens here.
Me too.
twice, because that sounds like a neglect. I mean, 5 years, come on, a grader?
Well, there's, but you could have,
A lot of
you could get a lemon, there's, unfortunately, there's so many, there's so many items, right? And we know that the newer trucks, they have their regen mode and all kinds of computerized features that your 2001 doesn't have. And some of the advantages there is,
You got that DFG to worry about
well,
now.
you can fix it,
Yeah.
right? You can get a mechanic that can fix that relatively easily. You're not into specialized, you know, diagnostic troubleshooting.
You did your roads last year, you had a rower working doing double surface treatment there that was 16 years old. And there's a rower sitting in my pit that was going, that Miller was basically junking. That was in 2016.
It was in 2016.
Yep. She was basically, the foreman said she was jumped. She was getting on a float and heading back to Toronto, and he hoped he never seen it again.
Just dropped it at your place.
Okay, so, let me just,
Pit, and that's as far as it made it.
let me just see if I've got this discussion. I'm gonna just see if I can capture it, because I'm gonna introduce one new concept for discussion before we move on. I just wanna see if I've captured what I'm hearing around the table. Number one, we all recognize that these maintenance costs are out of hand. I think that's understood. Number two, we're not sure what the cause of it is, but we do get the strong message from our staff that we're extending the lifespans beyond what's reasonable. Number three, we seem to be of the mind that we would at least look at the terms of a lease. Not necessarily saying that we'd be obligated anyway, but because Councillor Hunter makes the strong point that within the fine points of the lease, you're probably gonna end up paying as much anyway. But I think I'm getting the feeling that we would at least like to explore a lease. Now, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I've got some consensus there.
I'd like to see
All right,
it too.
number four, I'm getting the concept, or I'm getting the feeling that there's consensus around the table that at least one of these trucks, to be determined by staff as to which is the worst, has to be replaced. Am I getting that right? Okay, that's the next thing. Now, I want to introduce an entirely new concept, and I want to get discussion. What about contracting the truck, the vehicle, the operator on a certain route as required? So much per mile basis. I want some discussion on that.
Could I ask one question first, Mr. Mayor? It's just for clarification purposes. On sheet 14, or on page 14 of the sheet we're looking at, I see the second line down, T1 fuel, but I see no other fuel shown for any of the other trucks. Could you just tell me why that is?
Certainly, through the chair, if you look at page 12,
Oh,
is it? No, am I wrong on that one? Just a sec.
Page 12, I got it.
No, just a sec, just in case. Sorry, 16, page 16, my
Page
apologies.
16?
Yes. At the top of page 16, shop and fuel expenses, you'll see the fuel item, and that is for
Fleet.
our fleet.
Jeez.
That's for what?
That's our fleet. For
Okay, so-
trucks, graders, loaders.
Okay, but that fuel item, as I see it, is 65,000 budgeted, 84,919 spent, and budgeting 80,000 for this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, but it doesn't answer the councillor's question. Why do I see a fuel item on T1 but not on any of the others?
Well, because the fuel item there, we get fuel for all of the rest of the fleet in bulk, where truck 1 is a pickup truck that we fuel up.
Oh, it's a pickup truck.
Oh, okay.
T1's yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
this,
So we got a,
So-
a preferential price on the fuel?
Not really.
Don't get anything? My
We
goodness,
do we not tender our
negotiate
fuel?
better, we gotta do, the art of the deal or something here, I mean, we're purchasing that much fuel.
It's,
We need to try and find a way to negotiate a little bit,
yes, and it is on the list in 2019 to go back
to
into
negotiate,
tender.
yeah. Good.
Do we not do fuel tenders?
Yes, we do. It's on the list to do again in 2019.
Or
is it yearly?
No.
So it's a contract.
How many?
I am not sure. I believe the last one came in just before I took in this position, so
Well,
probably
How many years is that?
probably about 5 years.
Holy jeez.
Do we negotiate with an oil company?
Tender.
It can.
Tender.
We tender to Shell and Imperial Oil, et cetera, et cetera.
It should be in the township again.
But
should be
hang
getting-
on 1 second, now, what I'd like to know is do we do it by means of delivery to our tanks, or do we do it by means of cards? Because by far, cards are the best way of doing it,
Definitely.
no question about that.
Certainly right now, with there is no card system at either of the shops, but that would be something that we'd be looking at when we go out for a tender in 2019.
So,
Some type of card system.
Why would you want some type of card system at the shop?
The shop? Well, it certainly makes it easier to track what amount of fuel is going into what vehicle.
But the card systems, I mean, if you have a place like,
Drummond's.
736 or something like that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You want to use the card, why wouldn't you just use your own, our own tanks that we have there and fill them up on
The end of the
weekly
shift.
or every other day? Like you're doing, I think that's what you're doing now, aren't you?
Yes, yes, correct. And the only difference is that we would add a card system to the tanks at the shop so that we can monitor what's,
What goes into
What
each
So
goes
that you
in.
can scan it and see
that's correct.
vehicle number 2. You get a better handle on it.
Get a better handle on that. Then
We don't
then
have
the-
such a system now?
We do not have a card system. It's a paper system,
Oh my goodness.
so.
The question, Mr. Mayor, the 60, well, let's say the 84,000 that was actual, is that both gasoline and diesel?
No, that is color diesel and your clear diesel.
So then there's really only one truck on?
On gas? Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
On this budget, because all the other facilities vehicles are on a different budget.
Correct.
Right, that's correct.
Yes. Okay, so, you took the wind out of my question, didn't you?
I'm sorry.
So now the silence is deafening.
I get faster off.
No, I was ahead of you, but I let you get in. So, I'm not getting any pickup on my request. My concept is, and I wanna have some discussion about it,
Well,
contract the vehicle, the driver, on a specific route. Snow plowing only.
What kind of problems would that present with the union?
Well, that's a different question.
Those are to my point of view, those are economic decisions, which you say lease, purchase, contract out. They can all be studied in terms of an economic model, if you wanna call it that. And I don't know, the treasurer indicated she has certain tools available to her, that once we got the data, she can feed into the system, and you can get an economic recommendation, if you like, from that study. That would say, well, if you do this, you're gonna X number of dollars. Over here, it's Y and Z. Now, that's only part of it, because you've got these other issues that you have to address as well. They don't show up, or they're, he misses he doesn't fulfill his articles of the contract completely. But certainly from an economic point of view, you can nail it right down.
Okay, but that means that we have to have the data. So do we know the data? Do we know the data? Do we know what it costs us per kilometer of snow plowing?
We have that data.
Okay, so we have that data. We know, we can pull it together to know what it costs us per kilometer to snow plow. All right, then, what is the concept, or what is the political will to put out a contract to say, we're prepared to put out a contract on this route, this many kilometers, we want bids. Here's the conditions that you must fulfill.
Mr. Mayor, you as a warden now should be able to get a lot of this information because the counties do contract in certain routes there. You must be able, should be able to find out what their cost is for.
Oh, that information, the county treasurer will gladly share.
Yeah, I say we should be able to get that from county, what they're paying. Because I know they have one truck on at this yard and they have one on at council yard, so.
That's right. They also, as somebody mentioned earlier today, they also have quite a number of what they call call-in drivers that run the second route, or the second phase of the route. Okay, so let me just wind that up this way. Is there a will around the table to see a comparative? Let's use our numbers for what it, let's have the treasurer prepare us a report, if we've got a will around the table, what our costs per mile are, and let's base it on something, I don't know what, and let's get the similar statistic and data from the county just to see what their cost per contracted kilometer is. Is there a will to do that comparative?
Is there anything wrong with getting information? I'm not saying we're gonna do it, we're just sorting.
It also gives you the option of retiring one of your older snowplows that you want, you know, is on the cusp of quitting on you anyway.
Okay, so
You don't want any part of it, Mr. Mayor?
you don't, eh?
No, sir.
Tell me why.
Been in the service business all my life.
Go ahead,
I know what happens when you subcontract.
tell
You
me.
don't get the same service. I'm very sorry to say that. I've seen it, I've watched it. You can even tell right now in the 401, ever since when we, remember the years ago, we had our own people doing the 401, number 2, and then we had the Cruikshanks, and now we got Cocoa paving. Quite a difference in our roads since back then when we used to have our own, until Mike Harris took that away, to what we have today. Quite a difference. That's my feelings, sir.
Okay,
I don't agree that we should be contracting out, but I don't think it hurts to get the price on it, just to see how in line we're running with our operations, where we're operating within line, or we need to look at how our operations operate.
well, this is the thing that, for me, at least we give, it gives us a goal to match,
Yeah,
if nothing else. Maybe we're doing better.
yeah.
Doesn't hurt to find out. Okay, well, I think I've got enough consensus around the table to have that study done. Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering how we're going to actually compare apples to apples, because the county typically doesn't clean up downtown businesses, et cetera, which are part of the activities that these plows undertake, and those do add costs. So it's not simply a matter of kilometers plowed within those costs.
You must have a route that doesn't do any cleaning of towns.
Any cleanup of businesses in the towns?
Yeah.
No, most.
Every route does it?
Most of our units do when we're going to clean up in the business section in Spencerville and Cardinal. We have most of our fleet there because we have to haul in.
But that's not snow plowing. You gotta, surely to goodness you separate your initial rounds, if I can put it that way, before you start your, wingbacks and everything. Surely, to goodness, you have a handle on what your initial rounds cost you, to compare with what the initial round of counties cost, even initial and second rounds.
Correct.
That's what you're comparing.
So am I to understand that we just want to compare one component of the operation?
That'd be my idea.
Okay. I just want clarity.
Just what it costs per kilometer to plow a road. You'll have to
Okay.
pick a road that's a paved road, not a gravel
Yep.
road, because the counties are all
Supplies.
paved roads, so we gotta compare
Okay.
apples to apples.
Yep, okay. Just wanted clarification, thank you.
Well, I'm just wondering if, go back to where Steve said and what David's, I think, trying to say is that there's a lot more to it than just plowing a small section of road and doing a comparison on it. Because at the end of the day, we'd still be trying to clear out those businesses. We'd still be trying to better the plowing. We'd be still using our resources to.
Well, I don't wanna make any, let me jump in here. I don't wanna make any, let me put it this way. The businesses don't get cleared any too soon in the cycle. They may get done, but they sure don't get done within the first 2 or 3 days. So, I don't think they're part of the routes at all.
Mr. Mayor.
With all due respect, the level of service policy that's together, we attempt to meet the cleaning out of the businesses as soon as possible within the time constraints that our operational staff have. They can only work so many hours a day,
Yeah.
so to be fair, I think the businesses and the citizens of this township get pretty good of winter operations. Plowing and removal.
Well, I'm still getting calls from Cardinal.
I would anticipate that you will always receive calls.
I know, but I shouldn't be getting them 4 days after the event. That's my point.
Then I think through the chair, we need to look at what level of service then we're looking for operations to achieve.
Well, we have a
It's
standard.
certainly not clear.
Well,
We do, and I think
I
we
thought
are.
they were pretty clear.
I think it's pretty clear that we're meeting it. We'll evaluate, for sure.
Okay, where are we here? So, anyway, I'm at, right now, anyway, I'll go out to move on. I'm at, it was 4C, and it was item 3, and it was the public works, and you talked about 2 issues, and we've sort of dealt with those extensively. So now, before I move on to item 4C and item 4, I think I'd just like to take about a 10-minute break. We've been going for pretty close to an hour and a half here, a little bit more than that.
Mr.
2
Mayor,
hours.
when we come back, there is one more item under Public Works and Storm that needs to be discussed with respect to the asset management study under
Oh,
stormwater.
is that the stormwater one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I took that as
2 more, sorry.
2 more? Okay, so we'll pick up from where we
Stormwater?
left off.
Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
Yeah, 2
Johnstown
stormwater,
and stormwater?
2 stormwater matters still to be discussed.
Thank you.
Everybody's
Yes, you did.
Go ahead, Chris.
It's been running for 2
Stretch the
hours.
legs.
Oh,
So
before we started.
4 we're gonna replace in 219 and not 220, that's what you're saying? That's what's in the budget? Correct. Okay.
Okay.
I agree in truck 3, that might have been
Thank you. Sorry?
It's either or.
Yeah.
Either, and one,
Truck 3?
it don't matter, you flip a coin.
What did it say?
155,000, 175,000, 201, 205 though.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's 4 years.
Sounds like 3 to me.
45.
All the old war bonds.
Order 20 of them.
Pardon?
We'll order 20 of them. No,
203,
Yeah, sure.
there's
Go for it.
211, that's probably your newest one. That's a single axle?
Yeah, so, see, that's truck eight.
Yeah, that comparison.
See,
Okay.
this was 2019.
No.
That's what I was trying to point out.
But you know what?
That's
2080,000?
why I
That's
picked
right.
it.
So I think with the repairs that we've done, unfortunately, it was higher.
That's why you
we
wanted
can get.
it.
I think we can get by with this one another year
And two
and do tough.
And do 4.
Yeah, and so basically flip-flopping those, 4 and 8.
Can we go 2 a year? No.
I don't know, if well,
You're not wise to, because then you just get in this problem in 10 years down the road.
Of 2 a year, you mean?
Yeah.
if we could, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying 1 a year?
Yes.
One
that's
a year,
all we
keep
need
it
is
Just
attention.
going.
Councillor Delaba.
It's empty.
Oh, sorry.
Did you bring refills?
No, I'll take it back.
What do you have, what was in
Ask
there?
me where that was.
They were very good.
Pay for one this year, pay for one next year.
Oh, is you
Same
can't reveal.
Right.
So
I
from now
missed it.
on, on Monday nights,
see
I
the
have to
truck
bring some baking, is
until
that
December.
is that the deal?
Make you pretty popular.
If we order it today, you won't see it till
December.
December,
Preferably non-chocolate.
no matter what.
You can't have chocolate?
He can't have chocolate, and Rebecca can't have
It's all,
So there's a
it's
nut
all
and
part of the
chocolate
production
restriction.
process.
You can't bring
And it doesn't matter if we go Peterbilt, they're all the same.
My favorite.
There's
You know, Peterbilt International, you're saying, we order it today.
There's some defects
we
that,
service everything over
that are evident with international.
We
There's
do
some
mine.
that are Peterbilt.
No, but what I'm saying, if we order it today, we're not gonna get it till Christmas.
One of the things we've been talking about is potentially.
Potentially not, yeah, but that's not really the.
right? That's what I'm sitting there
It
going,
wouldn't
okay.
be due to Peterbilt or international, it would be the
And the
equipment.
thing is.
Yeah, well, it's just because of
Viking,
what
the
it-
Viking.
the way you get everything together, yeah.
Yeah, and you buy them all as one package, one
Right,
time.
they do it, if you go to Peterbilt, they put everything on,
They put everything
the
on.
wing, the pow,
And then,
the box.
and then they have the
So it
warranty.
would
So we
be-
have no, we have
it would
no,
be- it would be
we have no
tender,
labor intense on it ourselves.
That's correct, it
Okay.
would be sort of turnkey delivery,
Yeah.
The only thing
so to
that's
speak.
wrong with it
Yeah.
So,
The only other options that you could look at is, you know, a purchase in 2019, you could
live with it
purchase
or not. Okay.
2 with 1 delivered in
Whether it's
2020,
at
right?
Tallman's or
Early in
whether it's
2020. You want to, you know, if you want to, 2, you know, if you tendered for 2, right? 1 delivered in 2020.
If we go
the cost will
2019
120.
now, you're gonna get it at the end of 2019.
That's right.
yeah,
you gotta build
So then next year we hit 2020 for 2020 in December.
At the end of
Because that place is gonna
we
be
order
there.
now, we get one in January, it's still next year's budget.
Yeah.
Or if we order 2, what was it? It's all fiscal.
203, you can get by, I'm sure. Not a lot of clicks on that, on that one.
Yeah, that's
That
No,
two,
it's not. That's why we're flip-flop.
Yeah.
That's why that was in 2019. The cut for was 2020, but we said, no.
why did we order, why did we got a single axle? What's that do?
That's for the.
Is that in our subdivision?
Yeah,
Not close around
Johnstown
your
Cardinal,
place.
it's a little easier manipulating in the villages.
Turns and everything.
Have a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns better than the big ones?
Yeah.
I mean, the big
That
ones
would be
would be
able to
very
make
good
your
up
corner.
there.
The turning radius is a little sharper with the single axle.
So that's better, single axle?
Well,
I like the single axle underbelly, that's just me, because that's what I use.
You like it because why?
I like the single
Yesterday
axle
was just-
underbelly, but it just doesn't clear.
was, you know, if they're so desirable to everyone else,
We've had-
they'll be desirable to
That's-
us.
that's a few
Our
decades
course has the least amount of limitations of any of these.
Tandems.
They're so hungry to get them, just keep like
4 years
and
ago.
then it costs us.
Oh, it can.
Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah,
actually
I'm
making
just-
money off of it, but they didn't like that and
Better
they
make it up so we don't sub that out.
released because of the high value.
Cost you more.
Oh, it's not the cost, it's the service. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's cool.
We will not get this.
I looked at a couple of locations that we've gone back there to route to, another municipality.
Just boggles your mind how.
Not saying-
Oh, no, it's like amalgamation.
Like I have access to it.
So, no.
No, I think it's a bad,
City of
I think it's a
Kingston,
bad route.
used equipment.
I'll review it.
Like I work at this auction all the time. You buy a sander, there's a sander through that. But I mean, what do you get? Right? Sure, you're getting what we're saying, right? We're saying, hey, let's take it up to that
They
auction
might
and
for one.
get rid of it. Right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That way you don't want any. That way you don't.
It's
That
just
way you're
weird,
not dealing
right?
with
It's weird to say we don't want, you know,
or the person who buys it.
I'm never home
I just,
For about,
I just really hate it.
And, so, It's not bad, but I noticed now this morning it was down to 68.
Well, you must
So
have
it dropped, so I went on
yesterday. Yeah, 100% complimentary.
No, I just leave them, because they get to the point, like when it gets icy cold, it just don't, you know, there comes a point where I just know.
That's not.
Oh, you hear the ice thing when they come on, the blowers come on, you can crack a bang.
I will say it very nicely, is that I honestly,
Back-to-back medications.
Anyway,
so what is it? Oh, I know
air
exactly.
source,
Oh, no,
and
it's
there's
not.
little electric blowers in each of the units, you know, yeah, for air conditioning, yeah, well, it's safe.
Yeah, sure.
Piping, yeah. And that's a green.
He's talking about walking track, or is that normal?
It's unlocked during the day.
It's locked down. Is there an argument between combined services? Is there anybody else who has a bunch of plows that doesn't actually have
Kidding,
the areas like
in United Air
they're
Reference?
plowing? Like, it wouldn't make sense I would say, hey, can you have a plow or maybe Cardinal out every day? I was thinking maybe they had different equipment because they had.
It's freezing.
Fair, I feel like we have absolutely nothing.
Because I know when Andrew was in United Air Reference. Oh, Jesus. Everything's air conditioned.
Yeah, like a big tractor blower that blows it right down.
She just got an interesting
I looked at my dad's street last night, and I remember when we were.
about 5 years ago, they have a new software system.
You can't blow it down
in
the
Shield.
So when
And
we
they
were.
moved her in from the
Right, so
labs
when we
into
were
the
kids,
software.
that's what she did,
They
right?
made
Just
the
blew
IT
it down to the end of the thing, and we made a ski hill of it.
marrying up the functions of the lab.
They piled it literally right in
Software.
front of
Well,
dad's
it's been
house,
going.
and
They
dad's
got the
house. We
budget.
slid on it for 2 or 3
I got a
days
call
till
the
they could
other
take
day
the front
from
loader.
Great Roman Street.
So I went with
On the nature, and they wanted some people, and they're just buying the same system, so they wanted some people to come over and get her. Yeah, so she's going over for a week and a half.
shaming somebody. So she said, no, you can't.
I'd be, well, she's got some friends up in because she worked in
Doing the
England.
job and
She's
then
got some
telling
friends
us
there.
to ask.
And she's got both the Canadian and the British lab tech. So she should be on this experience that she's got already on it.
What's that?
A lot of traveling, but
But he doesn't actually have a ticket because he's new here from Alberta, he didn't get one.
oh, yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
right up, you know.
And she likes the
Yeah.
challenge. She likes the challenge. That's, you know.
Yeah, I don't think that's really their fly, but okay.
I have a huge problem with your first one as for
Deb, you want me to try
concept,
one of those
but-
new chairs, see if they're okay?
Are they here?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
I should try one, see if they're okay.
Is that still a single?
For the fire.
Is this one still a single?
You get the
They
red
just
chair.
got delivered.
You want one of those red chairs?
That from Mallory?
That's very nice.
Yes. Yeah, they would.
Oh, yeah, I can concentrate now.
Does it come with a manual for me to use it? Because I can't seem to use the other one. The guys,
I think so.
we haven't seen
It's a
weather like
conference chair.
that in 100 years.
The boardroom
So,
chair.
Oh, it's not?
Yes.
We're doing okay.
Hey, guess what?
I
The district changed.
went out on tour yesterday for a while.
All goes well, you
and I
guys
came
are
back
only
here
in
and
those
I
chairs
said,
for 2 hours a
"We-
week.
I-
You can go.
Things are great.
Yeah, sure. This is replacing those burgundy ones that are.
Make sure you grab the one that's not busted.
So this was-
Because there's a busted one in there. Steve gets that one. You get the busted one.
Okay, 1 minute. Try. 1 minute.
Took that one
Same
red
all
chair.
day.
Yeah, yeah.
I said,
And then like later on, right, a couple days after,
Sorry, I bought 8 of these.
I'm sitting somewhere. So, stand up, it's like,
My daughter's getting married.
there's a guy that say the word. Right.
Because there's this one that sings.
I think
The
it's
only
made
way
up.
to do it is to some kind of a word.
Getting married in
Get a
Arizona.
wedge, you get a wedge. It's what,
November, so they had kids.
For the first year, you could smell a sheep.
3,000.
Sheep is down there. You got a council meeting tonight?
Yes.
This is a marathon session then.
We wouldn't have been dressed up so much if we didn't have a council meeting.
I thought it was just this afternoon, so I kind of
Council meeting tonight, and then Roma next week.
98 was the ice storm.
That's interesting about the natural gas. That's taken a lot of years. Well, it isn't over yet either, so.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It wasn't bad, price, $2.59.
Really? You ready, Counselor?
I'm just waiting for my coffee, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Showtime.
All right, so, sorry, there to the Director of Operations, I saw this stormwater one, but I didn't realize it would be part of your report, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's two items proposed under stormwater as potential reductions. The first is 70,000. So as part of the provincial regulation with respect to asset management, there's what you would call your core municipal infrastructure assets that include your water, wastewater, storm, roads, bridges, and culverts. Our field accounts with our water, wastewater, roads, bridges, and culverts are in pretty good shape. Unfortunately, with the stormwater section, we're lacking the necessary field data. So the 2019 operational budget had the study work for undertaking the actual closed circuit camera TV, an evaluation of the condition of the structures and pipe within Cardinal, Spencerville, Ventnor, and probably a couple other areas, and mapping out that infrastructure so we have all the data that we will be required to prepare our plan and submit to the province in July of 2021. So naturally, the work doesn't have to be done in 2019. The preference is to have the work done in 2019 originally to give us a little more time to prepare the plan, but it could get deferred to 2020. So basically, that's the $70,000 reduction.
So before you go on.
Yes, sorry.
Can you just explain to me exactly what the requirements of the asset management plan are vis-a-vis stormwater assets? I mean, are our stormwater assets not mainly our ditches and culverts?
So through the chair, in the rural areas, they are, but within the village of Spencerville and the village of Cardinal, the stormwater infrastructure, you have a number of storm basins and pipe network throughout those two areas especially.
And they're a separate network?
They are a separate network to the wastewater system, yes they are.
So then what does the asset management require? It requires that we know the length of the underground network?
The length, the condition of that underground network.
Materials?
The material makeup.
The age?
The age is best that we can determine. And some type of development on what some of those costs moving forward are based on your condition, what are your priorities and moving forward that way.
Okay, so now do we know where all these assets are located?
Not completely. We have a reasonable good idea. Unfortunately, the storm networks have been, in some cases, piecemealed throughout many years. So really getting a good handle on it will require complete camera work on all the piping to determine exactly where everything goes.
With no as-built? When they built these, did they not prepare as-built? I mean, what am I asking this question for?
To answer that question, if we had as-built, we would have our area mapped out, so we don't. Some of our newer projects, yes, we do have the as-built, and we certainly can have those mapped out, but there are a number of the infrastructure that's in place that was done at certain times, and there's no documentation around that.
Like 1895 or something?
Unfortunately, no. Probably we're looking up into the 90s before there was any type of true or reasonable documentation on those assets.
But is there not a certain amount of work that we can do in-house to prepare this study? I mean, we can at least locate them, can't we? We can at least map them. We can at least determine the length. We can at least determine the year in which they were installed and the cost. I mean, we shouldn't do. Is the $70,000, I'm assuming that was for a contract to hire this done?
Correct. That basically covers your structure condition assessments and your pipe condition assessments, which when they're doing the camera work in the pipe, they're going to be providing you the pipe material, the diameter, all those items within the camera work that needs to be done anyways to determine the condition. So in certain cases, yeah, we have some of that piecemeal together, but we're still needing to get the camera work and that report done and in place. So it only makes sense to me is when we're doing that to get a final product that has it completely mapped out, color coded, so we have a solid piece of document to move forward.
So, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, do they run a pig through the pipe, or what do they do here? Is it
Camera.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that,
a
yes.
pig normally or something, but, you know, in the oil business. But anyway, it's not drilling holes and, oh, there's the pipe and it's rusty or not rusty, that type of.
No, it's not an integrity dig, no. It would be similar to in the natural gas or into the Enbridge pipelines or something like that, like a pig.
So it's a
variation.
submersible, basically.
So where did the $70,000 come from? Is that an estimate of what the study would cost, or has it gone to market to try to get a?
We went out in last year and got a rough estimate on pricing to do the structure assessment, to mark all the defects, et cetera, in the piping, and that was approximately the cost to complete that work.
Was there any liaison with council, with county to see what it cost them to do theirs? And the reason I ask is because the county asset management plan now meets the latest standard required by the province. We feel that our asset management plan, I think the requirement was to be ready by 2023 or 2022 or something like that. We've met all the requirements of the latest regulations, which means that if we as a township are required to have a certain amount of information on our stormwater management, county must also. How did they get theirs done so quickly? I mean, we had the same FCM grant that the township has, and I mean, we satisfied all the requirements of the grant. So has there been any liaison with them? See how they did it?
Through the chair, we have certainly touched base with the county to see what field data they have, but there's a difference between the asset management plan coming together in the software program and the actual accurate field data that you need to collect and put into that system. And that's what we're lacking, is that field data to put into the system. So my assumption must be that the county must have as-built for their assets that they were able to easily feed into that program.
Other questions here? So that's coming out, right? That's coming out. And you had one more that's coming out?
Yes, the other item is 30,000. That was put in as another study from the Johnstown settlement area. We've undertaken for several years to finally complete the Mary Street outfall. The outlet for a portion of that subdivision was now completed. But what this study was to collect some additional field data and survey and actually design some type of stormwater management plan for that subdivision. There's not one in place now. The R.V. Anderson report recommended the rural cross-section, the typical rural cross-section be done for drainage design, which is an open ditch. However, there's a number of those streets that have natural gas servicing in there, right in the ditch line that has been filled in. And if we go to remove the to create an open ditch concept, will be have the piping exposed. So I don't think that's a viable solution in certainly all cases, and trying to get a better handle on what would be a viable long-term solution to correct some of those drainage issues that are occurring in that subdivision.
Do you think that's about 30,000 just for the study?
I think with all the field design that would need to be undertaken, I believe that's a reasonable estimate. It may come in a little lower. I certainly haven't, that hasn't been tendered to get an idea of what that would cost.
Comments around the table, questions? Councilor Hunter?
I can see we're trying to get our operational budget down, but 40 years ago when I was on council, this was a problem in Johnstown with drainage. There's, I think sooner or later we gotta spend the money and we get a plan and action here to get the drainage done there. So I can see setting aside the asset fund to next year. We still have a year to done, but I really don't like to see that study there coming out for the drainage in Johnstown. I think it's something that needs to be put off and put off.
But how much work has to be done in addition to what R.V. Anderson already did? That's what I'm concerned about, because I thought we had a plan.
Through the chair, the plan was basically a visual assessment that showed, that took basic elevations and said, the water flows this way, go to an open ditch. Make some minor repairs to some of those open ditches, and where the ditches have been filled in, open them up. However, in a number of cases, those ditches that have been filled in for decades prior to some of the servicing going into that subdivision. So it's truly not practical to create an open ditch. We don't have the room to create an open ditch. And in order to create an open ditch in some of those areas, we're looking at quite a deep ditch as well, which isn't very good to maintain. I think we need to really revisit the whole concept of a rural cross-section open ditch design in Johnstown.
Are the natural gas lines that you spoke about, are they in the subdivision or just along number 2 highway?
There are some that are within the subdivision.
Okay, so Councillor Hunter's comment, I'm just gonna put an asterisk beside that 30,000 and bring that back later. Okay, so now, are those your two, or are you dealing also with waste disposal and transfer site?
I've just been informed that I will be dealing with curbside waste and recycling.
Okay,
So thank you, Mr. Chair. There's 60,000, and that is a reduction in the expense side by increasing the projected revenue by 60,000 by moving the price of a garbage bag from $2 to $2.50.
well, it says the first draft did not include any increase.
That is correct.
And so we're not removing 60,000.
We're adding revenue.
Well, we're adding revenue that cuts on the expense side. So if you look at 4B,
Yes? Yes, I'm looking at 4B.
so you're reducing your taxation supported on your curbside collection down to $26,597.
Why is it reducing?
Because you're shifting to a user fee with your garbage bag revenue. So there was a shortfall that was about 86 in the original budget that would have been supported by taxation. So by increasing your garbage bag sales and that revenue, you're increasing revenue and reducing the overall expense taken from taxation.
Just a minute. I'm not following the argument. I'm just not following the argument. There was a, there was a revenue of, well, we anticipated that we would spend $66,850 over and above any revenues we generated.
That was the 2018 budget?
Yes.
2019 budget anticipated 86,597.
86,000.
Yeah, if you look at the draft budget summary from January 3rd.
Yeah, I got it in front of me.
Okay, so the draft budget showed 86,597 for curbside waste and recycling. By adding $60,000 in revenue, we've reduced that amount to 26,597 on the January 18th report.
That gives us our 86, right?
Yeah.
Well, but in the 86,597, there was a proposal to increase the bag cost.
No,
No, there wasn't.
no, that was leaving the bag cost the same.
That's the same.
That was leaving the bag cost at
There was a
$2.
discussion item, Mr. Mayor, at that meeting on the 12th.
Okay, so what's happening is there's a loss of revenue from some other place.
No, so the first draft of the 2019 budget did not look to increase the bag, the price of the bag. And therefore, keeping the price of the bag the same, and our curbside collection contract increases, the taxation supported portion to break even was $86,597. So by proposing a 50-cent increase per bag, you've dropped the taxation supported portion of that department to $26,597, or $60,000 reduction in the taxation supported portion of that.
In other words,
That
if you look
department.
at page 23 of the January 12th of package, the revenue for bag sales was 210,000. And so if we had a sheet for today's meeting, then we would see that number increased by 60,000. So it'd be 270,835.
Run that by me again, Jack, please.
Well, on page 23,
Yeah, I see it.
you see at the top of the page, it's the 2019 draft budget.
Yeah, 210,835.
It's sub-account 594211,
Page 23?
page 23. Sub-account 594211,
Yep,
bag sales.
yep.
It's showing as 210,835.
Hmm.
That doesn't include the increase in the price of the bag. So at the meeting last month, or earlier this month, we discussed that issue of increasing it from $2 to $2.50.
We settled on 225.
$20.
Right. Oh, we didn't?
And if we did increase it, if we do increase it, I forget the number, 250 I think it was per bag. Okay. That number of 210,000 would become 270,000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so the revenue goes up, and then we can pull the money out of the expense side.
So on page 4B, you're looking at a net cost.
Yes, it's net. Yes.
Of?
Of 26,597.
Compared to?
Well, it was 86,597.
In the first round?
Yeah. So it's been netted out, basically. But we just don't have the revenue number. We should make that clear. Yeah,
Well, the 66,850 remains the same as we saw on January the 3rd. And the 72 becomes 60. You understand that?
No.
no.
The 60 that was shown as the year-to-date actual becomes 72 actual.
Yeah, so since January 3rd, we've had some
We've
additional
had some
costs.
additional money.
Yeah, yeah.
It's up to 93.
And the draft budget becomes 26,597 instead of 86,597.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's without any increase in the bag costs.
No, that's with the increase.
That's the result of the increase in the bed cost.
So what is the 60,000?
That's 60,000 plus 26,597 gives you your old number of 86,597.
In other words, Pat, what they've, sorry, Mr. Mayor, they've estimated that the number of bags we sell at the new rate of $2.50 will generate $60,000. And therefore, we can take the $60,000 off the expense side.
Yes, because this discussion that we're having is how we reduce the expenses.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I got you. So that implies a full implementation of the 50 cents.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to motion that and approve it, but that's, at this point,
So it
hypothetical.
requires, the note is that it requires approval,
Yeah.
requires approval, 50 cent per bag increase. Okay? Go ahead. Does that
That's it?
complete you? Okay, you're complete.
I have a feeling you've had enough of me on this.
He's a transfusion now.
Be assured it's nothing personal.
I don't take it that way.
Okay, so now I'm on item 4C, sub 4 of the agenda, and this is the changes to the recreation. Now, is it recreation facilities? Just the one?
Two.
The one heading on the page
Yes, that is
4B?
One heading.
one heading.
Okay. And I guess Mr. Spencer can speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have now received our December hydro bills, and based on our total consumption for hydro for both facilities, I feel that we are able to trim the hydro cost by 5,000 for each arena. That's 76 is the ingredient center and 86 is the Spencer Arena. And based on our consumption for last year and then going through for this year. So that's where I reduced the $10,000.
Okay, so that's a reduction of the hydro expenses.
That is correct.
Okay, and so that, now I'm on recreation facilities, am I?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so the original proposal was 969. This would reduce it by 10 to 959.
That is correct.
Okay, which is the two numbers that I see. All right.
For 1.9%.
Okay, all right, so that gives me where the 959 is coming from. All right? Okay, I don't think there's any discussion there. Now, who's doing the planning, economic, and agriculture?
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor, although I'd leave it to the Director of Operations to talk about agricultural drainage, because I did kind of have a laugh over his $500. But anyway. We have not identified any savings in planning or ag dev. I'm reluctant to lower those budgets any more than they are. I think that money is well spent, well invested. And with a new community development coordinator on board, I expect that she'll have some great ideas going forward, and she will also lead some additional training for planning particularly.
Okay, but now you're taking that budget from 34, 315 in 2018, which the actual spend was 43, and you're taking the budget actually down to 30.
Yeah, so the expenditures in the planning also included the money that we spent on the official plan. Right, it's offset by revenue taken from the reserves for that.
So you're comfortable with the 30,945?
I am, yeah.
All right, so that's planning, now economic development. No change there.
No, and again, our expenditures were high in 2018 because we did some survey work in the industrial park that came from that budget as well. We did the Main Street revitalization project funded with a grant from OMAFRA.
Yes.
Yes. So again, there's offsetting revenue in the need.
Okay, so the actual, in 2018, your actual was 77,700.
That was our budget.
Yes, and sorry, that was the budget, yes. But the actual spend was 106, which was 28,000 over the budget.
Right, but offset by grant income to cover the Main Street revitalization project.
Okay, and now going back to 77. And you think that that will be sufficient?
I do.
Okay, so that explains that.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. What
Jump
was
in.
that first one you said you did? The subdivision?
Oh, the official plan?
Yeah.
Is that the one we're talking about? Yeah, so that money has been put into reserves over the course of the last few years to pay for what we knew was coming in the official plan. We're most of the way through it now. I think there's 12,000 being whipped
Yes.
to finish the project in 2019.
Okay, thank you.
On agricultural drains, there's $500 in savings here.
Good job, Ray.
Well, it was 35,890 budgeted, but 30,000 spent, and now 34,600 recommended, right?
Correct.
Okay. Is that the end of those presentations then?
It is, sir.
Okay, so, the issues on the table are 50 cent per bag increase in the garbage bag. Let's speak to that issue first.
Before we get into that, like, I'd like to go back to the recreation side of the thing. Like, we got $150,000, $159,000 planned in the 2019 budget. And I don't know, we'll have some more money coming in, there are more expenses coming in, but so far, for 18, we've only spent $850,000. So why are we bumping $159,000 additional into the recreation side of the business?
I think that.
109.
The answer
109,
there
sorry.
lies in outstanding invoices, particularly for utilities. They're often a month or so behind, but I can let the.
Okay, so.
Well, just hang on a second. So the gist of that argument is that the year-to-date actuals are not correct.
Well, they may not be, but we also just heard from the director, or the manager of recreation, that our utility costs are actually lower than we anticipated, so there is that, but, I'm certainly happy to ask Mr. Spencer to respond to anything
Yeah,
I'm
there are
missing
still quite a significant amount of invoices that are still due to come in. We had some issues with the lift gate over here in Spencerville in December, and the hydro bills are not included on this. Gas bills are not included on this. Any gas for our vehicles and that have not been paid out yet. So all those come in within the next 2 or 3 weeks, as Melanie indicated earlier, sometimes late January, sometimes even February before we're closing off 2/18. So there are still some significant bills to come in.
So, do you think we'll reach the 940 level? I mean, the budget last year was 943.
Through the chair, no, we won't, or be very close, but we will, the 959 is as a result of mostly with the union contract
Yeah,
at
yeah,
175
yeah, like
and the CPP enhancement.
I've done that in my sheets.
That's the majority of
Yeah.
the increase.
So, because the rest of the sub-accounts don't seem to be, monstrously out
No.
of whack or anything.
No.
So the 959 is the number.
Yeah,
That is correct.
yeah.
And that's compared to the 942 this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it looks like we might be close to the 942 by the time all the bills are paid.
Right, okay, all right. So now I'm still back to the issues, the outstanding issues. And the first outstanding issue is the 50 cent per bag increase on the garbage bags. So where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
Who?
Counselor Dillon?
Sorry,
If I may, Mr.
Mayor,
Counselor.
but I thought we passed that last meeting at 25 cents, no?
There was a go around the table, and it was pretty evenly split between 250 and 225. We did this based on 250. That doesn't mean that it's cast in stone by any stretch of the imagination, but it was very difficult for us to see what the consensus was.
Oh, I knew 25 cents came in.
Yeah, there was some discussion.
There was discussion.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling good that night. I thought, okay. Okay.
All right, so the draft budget that you have in front of you, 4B, predicates on a 50% increase in the bags.
50 cents.
Yeah,
50 cents,
Not the wrapper.
Oh.
50.
We just jumped from a quarter to $1.
All right, I'm correct several times. Now, if somebody'd like to deal with the issue instead of my poor wording.
And Mr. Mayor, through you to the, when was the last time the bags went up, 2012?
Oh, gosh, no, they went up.
A year ago.
Yeah,
No,
2016.
2016, I believe.
2016, yeah. Went to $2.
See, you don't buy too many bag tags.
It's just the price of a cup of coffee, I don't worry too much about it.
Good show.
I think 50 cents.
I support 50 cents personally.
I'm getting a nod, I'm getting a nod, I'm getting a nod.
50 cents?
Yep.
Yeah, we did have that, we beat that to death, didn't we?
We did.
I remember that now.
Either Starbucks or Tim Hortons.
No, I'm
It
good.
is $50 a year.
No, that's right, you're one.
I don't have an answer yet, I still have,
I would like to have it increased to $2.50 a bag.
okay, that's clear, 50
That's very
cents.
clear, 50 cents.
I'm getting consensus here, as a matter of fact, I'm getting a majority here.
I would hold my nose and say yes. I would do.
Got you? Got you? No, I don't, not
He
yet.
wants to give us a free bag, which I'm in support. I support
all right, so I'll pinch my nose and support it too. If at future meetings, we can discuss other options for next year.
We can always discuss them. I've got no problem.
As long as I support
We can put them
on.
up to $3 this year.
I'm thinking more. Yeah, so fine, I'll do the same thing.
Okay, so, we're putting that issue to bed.
Wait, I gotta write it down.
Too worried, you won't forget
Do
that
it
one.
quick, don't ask Steve, he's still at a quarter.
It's on record. We have a commitment to 50 cent per bag increase. All right, next issue. Next issue is the question. Now, we gotta remember that if the 50 cent per bag issue is included on what we have in front of us on 4B. Okay, and that, when I look at 4B, bottom right-hand number, is a 2.19% increase in the operating budgets. All right, now I'm gonna talk about the $30,000 about the Johnstown engineering study. Now, any approval of any amount will rise the increase in the operation budget beyond 2.19%. And we know that 30,000 represents approximately 0.5 percentage point on the tax rate. And right now, well, we don't know that that translates to an increase in the tax rate, do we? No, we don't know that. All we know is that we've asked the staff to come up with a draft operational budget, which was no more than 2% more than last year. It's now at 2.19.
And what you actually asked for was 2.5%.
Well, that was roughly translated in the staff room after the meeting, not at the meeting. It was translated. So now the $30,000, if I could just get the treasurer to give me some indication, what does that do on a 5.9 operational budget? My operational budget here right now is 5.9, right?
Where are you seeing 5.8?
On item 4B, page 4B.
The estimated total.
Okay. So what you're asking, Mr. Mayor, is what effect does the $30,000 have on the percentage increase?
That's correct. And I think it'll be minimal.
Well, I think what we discovered in our calculations is that if we could bring this variance down to 175,000, that would give us the 2.5%. Mel, are you with me there?
I think you're correct.
Yeah, so when we were doing our
As we were
staff
doing it.
deliberations, our goal was $175,000 increase in spending or less.
This is
So,
157.
as long as you don't go beyond that, you're still below the 2.5, if I can put it to you that way, without doing the actual math.
Okay, so now I understand the argument, but I need to have it explained again. Your goal was, if you could reach
We could get that variance number
down to,
below 175,000.
and you did,
We did,
so the 175,000 of a variance
yes.
is equivalent to 2.5% increase in the operating budget.
That's correct.
All right, now I'm gonna take the 127, 453, and I'm gonna add 30 to it. If we do the Johnstown set, that gives me to 157, 453. I'm still below 2.5.
That's correct.
And the Johnstown study gets done. All right, so there's the implication. Where's the discussion? Need to hear from you all.
It seems like this has been an issue that's been heavily plaguing previous councils for an extended period of time. I think we're in a very good financial position this year, and sort of to echo John's sentiments, if we don't do this, when are we going to be able to find actual funding to do it if not in such a good position this year? So I would say, with respect to that, I'm happy at adding it back.
I've got one yes. I've got Mr. Robertson nodding. I'm looking at Mr. Bradley.
I like redoing studies. Why didn't we do the study properly in the first place?
Well,
That is really pissing me off, because if we're gonna do this study, are we gonna execute? Or are we gonna wait for another 3 or 4 years and then do another study? You know, it starts to get to be like we're studying the thing to death. So I think if we're gonna do another study, and I agree that we gotta solve the problem, okay? Because it is a mess of a problem. But I think we gotta make sure that we enforce the parameters that we feel we need in that engineering study. In other words, we can't just say, go study this thing and give us, you know, what you think. Because, I mean, this creating ditches and stuff like that is, well, I mean, we gotta put pipe or something in there.
well, I'm gonna pick up on that because from my point of view, I would rather spend 30,000 towards executing on what we learned from R.V. Anderson.
That's right, me too.
Except that we don't have the full picture from the R.V. Anderson study.
Let's work with the half picture.
And if I may, to speak to Mr. Bradley's point, it's true that we haven't executed on that 2011 study, but it was mostly because we needed to get that Mary Street outlet situation resolved before we could go forward. We had, the money was sitting there, as you know, for all those years to get it done. It's finally it's done. But I think the R.V. Anderson study was very high level. There was no.
What's it cost?
Very expensive too.
I don't recall. I mean, it was in the days when Mr. Wildman was here. I don't remember the cost of that study, but I do know it was a pretty high level study. And I'm sorry to interrupt and change the subject back, but I've been corrected. My numbers were wrong. I'm sorry. So now, your new limit is 145,000.
I just wanna, oh, okay, I can't go over 145.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, then that changes
So,
my previous
yeah,
decision.
I'm sorry. That was totally my memory was.
Wait a second.
Okay, so I'm gonna come back to the staff again then. Can we not spend X? Let's use 20. Can we not spend 20 on what R.V. Anderson has told us is required and start there? And the other thing that gets me is, when I look at Johnstown, I look on it, it's in existence, the grades are there, the flows are there. What we just don't know is where the corrections are required. But surely to goodness, with a man with a transit, should be able to tell us we need a correction here and a correction there and that will solve this part of the problem.
We don't know what is in the ditches. Honestly, that's the bottom line. We don't know what's been filled in. We know that in some cases, it's a series of 45-gallon drums with the ends cut out.
If it's working, it's working.
Big if.
Yeah, but we know that.
We also don't know where some pump lines are running. We don't know what the stormwater actually is taking away. Could be gray water in some cases, we just don't know.
Do we care? All we want is drainage. I mean, let's suppose we find out that I'll pick a street at random. Let's suppose we find out that on Elizabeth Street, there are 25 sump pumps that pump into the ditch. They're sump pumps, they're from basements. Do we care? Because let's face it, if we're gonna do a study, and the study tells us that there are 25 sump pumps pumping into the ditch, are we gonna change anything?
If it's a ditch, probably not, but it's not a ditch. It's a filled-in ditch with an unknown quantity of pipe, unknown size of pipe.
But it isn't. That's the thing. You look at Johnstown, I mean, it's all straight lines. Mary Street, Sophia Street, Elizabeth Street. It's all straight lines. It either is gonna flow this way to the St. Lawrence River, or that way to the creek in behind.
It's council's decision. I mean, you could, if you like, leave the Johnstown in with an upset limit of 20,000. We'll see what we can get done.
That's what I'd prefer to do.
I think we gotta try and solve the problem.
Yes.
No, but that solves pieces of the problem.
Yeah, part of it anyway. Do it over 2 years.
Yeah, select one street and do it this year, or a street and a half, or whatever.
I'm sure the residents don't mind if it spans 2 years. I mean, they know they can see we're working on it and getting it done.
Deputy Mayor wants in, and then I got Councillor Dillon.
Through the $30,000, will it give us a more concrete plan as to where we will and how we can formulate in the future to solve the problem? Is that the whole idea?
That is the overall goal.
And it will provide us that at the end of that with a concrete plan going forward of what exactly we will need to do to solve the problem.
It will certainly be more solid than what we have on, taking a high point out of a ditch, or removing a filled-in portion and creating a ditch, which isn't possible.
In your opinion,
In fairness.
In your opinion, money well spent?
Towards coming to a long-term solution, yes, or it wouldn't have been put in.
It seems to me, Mr. Mayor, that if we're either gonna put a ditch in or a pipe in. So, and, slope is one thing, but, I mean, that's simple. Like you say, you do that with a transit on the job site. So I don't think that, big engineering study is gonna reveal any kind of a, breakthrough on high technology of how we're gonna solve this problem. The water's gonna run into the river some way.
See, that's my feeling too. I don't understand why a man with the transit can't solve all these problems. Just don't understand it. Steve?
Mr. Mayor, what's the Anderson study?
There was an engineering firm engaged in 2011 to take a look at drainage in the Johnstown residential subdivision. And some of the things that were identified in that 2011 study have been implemented, including the Mary Street outlet and a number of culvert replacements and those kinds of things. But the study was very much high level. Wouldn't quite call it a desktop, but it wasn't far off. They didn't do any work to find out what other utilities were running through those ditches, or any of that kind of detailed
locates?
I'm gonna tell you one thing right now. I'm just worried that if we spend $30,000 on another study in Johnstown, as opposed to actually picking a street or an area and dealing with it, I'm worried that people are gonna have the same, another study, you guys are always doing studies. That's what I'm worried
fair
about.
criticism.
Recall.
The Deputy Mayor and then Mr. Brown.
So through the chair, is there enough in the previous report that we can actually accomplish what is being suggested?
I'm sorry, that's way outside my area of expertise.
Is there enough in the previous study, in the 2011 study, that we can go in there with somewhat of a plan, that we can actually accomplish some, some.
The Anderson report.
There are the things left undone in there that we can actually use this money towards.
There's plenty left undone. But just reshaping a ditch isn't really going to solve the issue. That's my opinion.
I'm sorry, Dave?
I said just reshaping an open ditch isn't going to solve the issue.
No. And a $30,000 study's not gonna fix the issue either.
The 30,000 isn't going to fix the issue, but it should provide some options of how you can go forward to mitigate some of the issues that are happening there now.
Chair, maybe, put the 30,000 towards it.
Sorry?
The chair of the drainage.
But through the chair, if the desire of council is to move forward with the R.V. Anderson report as it is, we will certainly undertake that. What I am saying is, I don't think you're going to get the results that you're anticipating. I don't expect that there will be a reduction in the complaints about drainage in Johnstown, but I could certainly be stand corrected.
Okay.
I'm comfortable enough that.
Okay, so if we allocated, let's use a number, $25,000 for actual work on the ground, can you find some money who can address some of the problems?
I anticipate a good man with the transit can help us.
Okay, 'cause I would rather spend money on the problem than on the study, at this stage. At this stage. Councillor Hunter.
I know people wants to get stuff done, but for the last 40 years, every council come in here, and we're gonna correct that business, and we're gonna spend some money, and we're gonna clean some ditches, we're gonna have a transit in, we're gonna shoot lines, and we're gonna do something. Talk to most people that live in Johnstown, the drainage isn't much better there than it was 40 years ago, and there's been a ton of money spent in Johnstown on digging ditches and putting culverts in and changing. The last council I sat on, that you sat on with us here, Pat, we did a lot of ditch work in there. I think we got more flack out of the ditch work than we did from 3 or 4 people out there than we got credit for doing it. Although we did correct some of the drainage, but they really didn't appreciate that open ditch that we ended up putting in there, and that's what the Anderson report called for us to do. We did exactly what the report said. But they weren't very happy over it, because we took tiles and stuff out that they'd had in that wasn't supposed to be in there, but we took them out. Maybe corrected a little problem there, but it certainly didn't reduce the flack we got, or the overall flow of Johnstown didn't improve. I think we need a solid plan, as our operation manager says, to go ahead, that when we spend money, we're not just coming back the next council, we're just leaving another job for them to come back and do it again, so.
I'd like to ask Councillor Dillabaugh if he's had any contact or heard anything from the residents in the ward, where we did fix the Mary Street portion, that little bit on the Highway 2. And I think county council, the county did some of the work on it. But you remember the brouhaha that we got into with, you know, the cost in that R.V. Anderson report was like, I don't know, well over $100 grand or whatever to do that one little portion. And we actually deferred it from one year to another. And I don't know what the final bill was, but it was sure not anywhere close to what Anderson was proposing, or I mean, this study, and then the contract that was bidding on, you know. I mean, that was a nightmare.
Do we ever get a final costing from county?
No.
They absorb it all?
Maybe.
It's a county road, it's a county road.
Well, I mean.
I'm not thinking that they've absorbed all of the costs. I think there are some additional costs.
But we haven't been invoiced.
No.
We have not.
The reason I'm saying that is because you gotta remember, counties runs $100 million budget. That little project it isn't even a blip on the radar screen. But it's a lot for us.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Councillor Hunter makes a good point, but God dang it, I can't believe that we didn't get some. First of all, the Mary Street thing, the average Joe in Johnstown doesn't even realize that had to be done first.
No.
They didn't even realize that. I mean, we used that as the reason, and that was a good reason, but still can't believe that we didn't accomplish something with the work that we did there. You want it in again, and then I think you're next.
One more quick ask. So do we believe that the result would be actual or just perceived result? Because I'm getting two different ways of thinking that we might go ahead and do something that would be a perceived result so that people think that we're actually doing something in Johnstown, or the $30,000 being spent to get an actual result and a plan moving forward. Do you really think that the $30,000 is going to do anything?
Through the chair, what I would say is you will obtain some actual, but the majority will be perceived. I don't see anything in that RV Anderson report with some of the minor modifications that they're doing that will be impactful in the overall issue.
Councilor Dillabaugh didn't
Yeah.
respond. I asked the question.
Well, yeah, where the chair, I mean, I've had more complaints up on Sophia Street for some reason on the drainage than Mary or Elizabeth. No, I don't know, you maybe you can help me out there. Why? There's some ABS or some big O, I know it's plugged, that goes from one lady's backyard. She was gonna, she almost threw me out, but anyways, I got in there. And her flopper there was broke, I fixed it, but she says, and it was full of dirt. We got problems up there, no question. But can't we do something with the 30,000 instead of studies, like actually do? Something like that?
Doesn't work.
You know what I'm saying? We already studied like the Anderson. I guess, I mean, I'm not, I'm not a really person, study, like holy, I don't mind studying if it doesn't cost us anything.
Don't work that way.
Well, I know, no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, can we actually take that 30,000 and physically do something?
So through the chair, as I indicated already, yes, we can certainly carry out some of the stuff that is in that RV Anderson report and do it. I anticipate that the issue that you may be talking about is in that Barbara Street, Sophia area, which was, we invested money to resolve that issue that you're telling me isn't resolved. So what I'm attempting to do is let's stop piecemealing street by street together to hopefully make some impact that person will stop complaining, instead of let's approach it from a systematic point of view and see if we can have a long-range plan that will actually make a positive impact in a longer range. So, but as I indicated before, if the desire is to carry forward with that RV Anderson report, I'm quite fine with that. I just felt that it was necessary to bring forth that other option that I think is a better option.
You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried you're gonna spend the 30,000, you're gonna get a report in front of you, and then you're gonna go to tender. You're gonna go and we don't have the money this year to tender it. You're gonna go next year to tender it, and you're gonna find out, well, we don't know this, and we don't know that, and we don't know something else, and it turns out that the $30,000 studies is so full of holes that, because we didn't tender it right away, is so goddamn full of holes that there's not much value to us. And the engineering firm will look at us and say, well, that wasn't in the scope, well, this wasn't in the scope, this wasn't in the scope, so we didn't address this and we didn't address that. then we're gonna be looking here like, we're gonna have egg all over our face again. I would like to get somebody to come in and design, build. Come in and design, build, and solve this problem. Take Sophia Street East, come in here, design, build, and get out of there. And we don't, when you're finished, we don't want to hear a complaint.
Councilor Dillabaugh will know this as well, that it's, some of the property owners, like, if you take Sophia and Mary, north-south, there's properties between those on the First and Second Street and so on, where the water's like, it's like a swimming pool in the backyard, okay? And so the grading even from those properties to a ditching system is not right. So,
Which is there.
yeah.
I mean, but we're not gonna go on their land.
We're not gonna go into private land. I mean, that was an argument we had with the last problem at the Mary Street outlet there. So we're, like, it's a mess, really. I don't know what the solution is, frankly. but-
Yeah, you're right. My backyard's full,
Yeah.
but it's up above.
Yeah.
I get everybody up
You're
above,
getting it coming down at you.
right? Like in the spring, man, I can't go in my backyard. That's just life. Because everything coming down. I don't know where. I kinda looked. But
Okay,
Through the chair.
go ahead.
Maybe at this, there's a good discussion, but maybe the bigger discussion needs to be whether the 30,000 stays in or doesn't stay in, whether you want to do actual work or study work or whatever the case may be. I guess maybe that might be the better question is, do you want any work?
Yes,
done
well,
in
I mean, that's the
Johnstown?
way I'm trying to phrase
Right,
this
so-
discussion here right now. Work or study?
no,
No.
work.
Work. I hear work.
Work for me.
Work for you.
You work if you want, I think it's just the same as it's going to be, you're just doing a piecemeal job. 4 years down the road, it's going to
Won't
be
go
wrong.
there much with 30,000.
Where are you, Counselor, or Deputy Mayor?
I'd rather take directions from experts, so study for me.
Oh, I got 2 and 2.
I don't want to spend the money, so work.
Okay, so I got another work and another work. So that's 4 to 2. I'm gonna go with the work.
At 30,000, is right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, I'm moving on. Now we're over our 2.5, right?
Yeah, 0.7.
Right? I'm over the 2.5, but I still have some issues on the table.
2.716 right now.
What's that again?
2.716,
2.716? Okay, the issues on the table are remaining are as follows. Still have to deal with the vehicles issue. We'll deal with that, I think, when it comes to capital. But we do have, in this budget, we do have 1.86 million for public works, which includes maintenance. And we're gonna hope, in last year's budget, there was 253,000 for maintenance. We actually spent 344,000 for maintenance, vehicle maintenance. We're gonna hope that that 344 is not a recurring number, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're hoping there. We're living on hope. That's better than love. Well, most cases. So now I see the outstanding issues to be the vehicle, and the only other outstanding issue I see is the 2,500 and the 2,500 for the council budget. 25 plus 25 is 10.
5.
Say again?
5.
5, sorry.
5,000.
5,000.
I like that.
So do I have consensus to put that back in? No, sorry, to add that. Add it. Okay, we have consensus to add 10 into the council budget.
5.
Jesus. And I don't know whether I'm gonna make it till 5 o'clock or not here. I'm starting to stumble all over the place here. Okay.
It is 5,000, right?
It is 5. You know why I'm thinking 10, eh?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's what we used to have then all the attend conferences and stuff.
I was gonna say, is it reasonable to think that it's gonna be higher?
Yeah. Well, we're putting in 5.
But we've used 3,400 already in January, right?
And
Yes.
adding 2,500 to it, so it will come out at 8. No, 3,500.
You wanna bump it up even further?
6.
Well, we've got 2 members of council here never served on council before, and I'd really like to see them attend many conferences. I like to attend the AMO conference, but that's not really a necessity. It's in Ottawa. I don't care picking that up, tab up by myself for that, but I'd really like to see our other councilors have the opportunity to attend as many conferences as they could this year, to really get some of their networking and stuff.
So pleased to hear you say that. Is there a will to bump the conference number up a little, by another $1,000 or so, 1,500?
I'd like to see it bumped up, because I know yourself, you've attended the H2O on the port there, but I think that's something somebody else should be attending sometimes too, to go along with that, so.
Well, I agree with you there on that.
Port can pay for that.
Yeah, the port will pay.
Yeah, but you bring it up and you get people thinking about it.
The other part of that is, it's reasonable to expect that the mileage is going to increase a fair bit, correct?
Yes.
I have no idea what that dollar number would or should be. But I think it's reasonable that everybody's going to be filing expenses, so why under budget it? I mean, if we budget a little bit more and we come in under it, then that's great, but otherwise we're gonna be asking for more, I think, partway through the year.
I agree with you here. I'd sooner see us be under budget than have to come back for another bylaw to extend our spending partway through the year.
Okay, so I have recommendation from staff to add 2,500 for conference and 2,500 for mileages. Who would be in favor of adding 5,000 for conference and 5,000 for mileages, bringing the total increase to 10 instead of 5? Just so that I'm not tripping
There you
over
go.
my tongue.
That's the number you were thinking.
Yes. You had it in your mind all the time.
There you go.
Yes.
Getting confirmation
Yes,
here?
for me, yeah.
Confirmation here, confirmation there.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, so now we're adding 10 to the council budget.
I don't think you were going that way all along.
Okay, now, the way I understand the meeting is that we've run through the agenda and we've dealt with the outstanding issues that were identified as far as we've gone. Now, we haven't got to item 4D on the agenda, which is the capital budget, but I would like to have the staff tie up the operational budget and then, in our next meeting, review the new operational budget and then start the capital discussion. But before we leave here tonight, we have to deal with item 4E on the agenda, which is the date for the next meetings. So I'm hoping that everybody has their calendar with them. And so I'm just looking at my calendar. So I'm relatively open, and does staff have any suggestions? Or are we just dealing with a blank calendar here?
Yeah, blank calendar at this point, Mr. Mayor, we had February 4th, and that ends up not being a good day, so basically, you know, if Monday afternoons work, I think that's a reasonable way to approach it, but it's up to council.
Okay, but the 4th, Monday the 4th is out,
Yeah.
and basically, unless we can put something together in the next few days, and by the way, the Roma takes up Monday, Tuesday next week, and the CAO leaves on February the 9th. So I'd like to get in one more budget meeting before the CAO leaves.
Oh, yeah, don't feel obliged.
Yes. because I think she provides good direction to the staff behind the scenes.
When are you leaving, Deb?
Not soon enough. February 10th.
You're on camera.
I have editing.
All right, so can I suggest, and I don't know whether it'll work or not, but can I suggest a meeting on the 31st in the evening?
Free as of 2.
You're free as of 2?
I will be out of Brockville by 2:30 at the latest. I can be here anytime after that.
I cannot do anything, Mr. Mayor, that week.
You can't do anything that week?
I'm on call.
Okay, so then that jumps us to the week,
Unless I can switch Thursday. You're saying the 31st?
yes?
Can you give me a day or two, sir?
Yes, I prefer to do that because I know your employer is sympathetic.
And we're talking afternoon?
Yes, and it sounds like a 3 o'clock start?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh,
with that.
afternoon, not evening?
Afternoon.
You said evening.
No.
Well, I'm
I
fine
think
with
I have a-
evening.
I
I'm
have
fine
a
with
problem
evening
that
too.
day.
It doesn't-
Evening?
Evening, I'm good.
Okay, so we're,
Evening, I'm good.
okay, so we're scheduling then for 6:30, what about a 6 o'clock start? 6 o'clock start on Thursday, the 31st. Can everybody do that? Okay, so that'll be budget meeting number 3. All right, now, and then we get that in before the CAO leaves. 6 o'clock start on the 31st. Now I'm over on the next week, which is the 4th to the 8th. Is there any possibility of another budget meeting on the 7th, which is another Thursday, a week later?
Afternoon or evening?
Can you do 6 o'clock again?
Yep.
And so we're at 6 o'clock on the 7th. And that will be budget meeting number,
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna have a tough time getting to a budget meeting at 6 that night. Can we?
On the
make it-
7th?
Yeah, can we make it a little later?
6:30? 6:30 work?
Should, yeah.
Okay, so 6:30 on the 7th. So there's our next 2 meetings.
It's number 4,
The 31st, what time?
6:30.
6:30?
No,
31st
31st
is
is 6.
I'm sorry.
6.
Okay, so now, that sets that. Item number 5 on the agenda is the question period. There's no one here. Do any of the staff have a question? Other than, why did I waste my whole afternoon here?
At the pleasure of council.
Good answer.
So elegantly phrased.
Been here for a while.
But we have
Here,
no-
I think it's here.
We have no closed session. The chair's looking for the motion to adjourn, please. I have Councillor Cameron and seconded by Mr. Bradley. Those in favor? And